Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Monday, the 13th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. Well, today, the Home Secretary will set out emergency measures to deport the freed Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed.
There is some room within that manifesto for movement on tax.
Yes, Andy Burnham swans into Downing Street a week from today, but could he be eyeballing a £38 billion tax bombshell?
Police arrest a 28-year-old British national who drove almost 300 miles to Anne Widdecombe's Dartmoor home on the morning of her death. His neighbours say he was carrying a wooden stick.
At this point, there is still no information to suggest that this is a terrorism-related incident. There is nothing to suggest that it was politically motivated.
Well, police say that they are not looking for anyone else in connection with Anne Widdecombe's death. There are still significant police cordons around the village of Hayter Vale.
Also today, GB News is bringing you very special coverage of the 12th of July festivities across Northern Ireland.
Meanwhile, police in Atlanta are reportedly on high alert for England's semi-final on Wednesday against Argentina. That's after renewed tensions over the Falklands.
And a huge blaze in North Wales has been declared a major incident as the recent heat wave sparks high-risk zones across the country.
Yes, I am quite angry that in a week's time we're going to have a new Prime Minister who's had little to no scrutiny over his policies. What is he going to do as Prime Minister? Why has no Labour MP decided to contest this man?
Haven't you heard? He is spending 1 hour this evening talking behind closed doors to Labour MPs. So the 400-odd Labour MPs, I don't know how many per minute that would be. You can do some quick maths in your head. But that is the hustings event that is taking place at 8 o'clock this evening, where it seems like it will be the only formal opportunity for MPs to question him. But of course, the public don't get to see it.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we've got reports, yes, coming from the Reform Party, but reports nonetheless that this man, Andy Burnham, who's going to be the Prime Minister, may well add £38 billion more taxes onto our... Well, we've got a huge pile of taxes currently, have we? have we not? Do we really need another 38 billion on top?
And crucially, just how damaging could tax rises be? Because we know that the last government was hamstrung by its manifesto.
Yeah.
So no tax rises on employee national insurance, VAT or income tax. Now, that meant that they picked some of the most economically damaging taxes to raise, and they had to raise them by more because they're less broad-based.
Yeah.
Because those three taxes are sort of the biggest, broadest. But so if Andy Burnham wants to raise more tax, he's going to have to pick taxes that, frankly, are more distorting of economic activity and might have more damaging effects. I mean, we saw this with the employers' national insurance rise, just how crippling that has been for particularly hospitality businesses. Who could be next?
It just feels so undemocratic, this whole thing. Let us know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get in touch. But let's get to the news headlines with Lewis.
Tom, Emily, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's 4 minutes past 12. Here are your latest GB News headlines. The man arrested on suspicion of murdering Anne Widdecombe is believed to have driven almost 300 miles to her home in Devon on the day of her death. This comes after Devon and Cornwall police confirmed they're not currently looking for any other suspects following the arrest of the 28-year-old man in South Yorkshire on Saturday.
Our investigation into the death of 78-year-old Anne Widdecombe has continued to develop over the past 24 hours. Shortly after 9 p.m. on Saturday, the 11th of July, a 28-year-old white British man was arrested at an address in Rotherham, South Yorkshire, on suspicion of the murder of Miss Widdecombe. We were supported by officers from Counter-Terrorism Police North East and South Yorkshire Police who carried out the arrest on behalf of Devon and Cornwall. At this point, there is still no information to suggest that this is a terrorism-related incident, and at this point, we are not looking for anyone else in connection with this murder.
Miss Widdecombe was found dead at her home in Devon on Thursday. Police believe she was killed nearly 24 hours earlier, around midday. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will today set out the legal steps she will take to deport the freed ringleader of a Rochdale grooming gang. Shabir Ahmed was jailed for 22 years in 2012 for multiple accounts of child sexual offences, including rape. He was released from prison on licence earlier this month. Calls have mounted across the political spectrum for the deportation of Ahmed, who was stripped of his British citizenship following his conviction, leaving him with only Pakistani nationality. Argentina's foreign minister called Falkland Islanders an artificially implanted population. He also said the 2013 referendum held on the archipelago, in which the islanders chose to remain British, was illegitimate and called for negotiations over the Falklands' future. He added the 1982 war and the 2013 vote had failed to resolve the Falklands dispute, saying the sovereignty of the archipelago should not be decided by a population artificially implanted by the occupying power. The row was reinvigorated by the Argentine football team, who were filmed singing they would win the World Cup for Las Malvinas. England play Argentina on Wednesday night for a place in the final. And finally, Jurassic Park star Sam Neill has sadly died at the age of 78. The Northern Ireland-born New Zealand actor was best known for his leading role in the dinosaur blockbuster films The Piano and Peaky Blinders. He appeared in more than 50 films over his career. No cause of death has been given, but Neill recently revealed he was cancer-free after being diagnosed with blood cancer in 2022. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. Let's look at your finance.
Markets on the move. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.34 and 1.17 euros. The price of gold is at £3,038 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,490 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Good good afternoon, Britain. It's now 7 minutes past midday. The Home Secretary is preparing to change the law in an attempt to deport the Rochdale grooming gang leader, Shabir Ahmed.
Yes, Shabana Mahmood is expected to announce plans to close a legal loophole that currently prevents his removal from the United Kingdom, despite him being stripped of his British citizenship.
It comes after Ahmed was released from prison earlier this month after serving 14 years for rape and sexual offences against girls as young as 12.
Well, GBNews national reporter Charlie Peters joins us. Charlie, the Pakistanis don't want him back, do they?
That's right. He had a 22-year sentence. He's served 14. He's meant to be deported because he's lost his British citizenship, stripped from him by then Home Secretary Theresa May. But there are two things preventing Shabir Ahmed from being removed from this country. The first is that the law in this country does not allow it. Under the 1971 Immigration Act, there are provisions in that law to say that someone who arrived before 1973 and wasn't warned of deportation within 5 years of being here is protected if they come from a Commonwealth nation. That law is likely to be changed later this afternoon. Announcements to get it under the way will be announced later this afternoon. There are warnings it could take up to a year to get that achieved. That will not be welcome news to Shabir Ahmed's victims and those in Rochdale who do fear having that man outside of a prison cell. And the other thing preventing his deportation is the Pakistani authorities. We know that Islamabad is strictly opposed to any deal that would see more grooming gang ringleaders and abusers being returned to the country. You know that 2 from Rochdale were deported recently, but there are another 2 others who've resisted deportation using the ECHR and the right to a private and a family life as one of their reasons to delay deportation plans. They too have had their British citizenship stripped. But what we can tell you now about the current thinking in the Pakistani government is that they are going to play a hardball to negotiate with the United Kingdom to keep Ahmed out of their country. What they're pushing for, as we first revealed last year, is the removal of 2 political dissidents in the United Kingdom, one a former army major, another a former minister who they want to be removed to Pakistan. But in return, the United Kingdom could push for sanctions on foreign aid and visas. So far, that offer not being pushed forward.
Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. But yes, for the 5th year running, the People's Channel, GB News, is on the ground in Northern Ireland to mark the anniversary of the Battle of the Boyne. We're going to cross straight over there now with Arlene Foster. Arlene.
Very much, Emily. Well, as you join us, the first bands and lodges are making their way into Royal Hillsborough. So let's enjoy the colour, the music and the atmosphere as this year's 12th gets underway. Ian, this is the first lodges that are coming through. Who are we seeing here at the moment?
So we've got the start here of Hillsborough District, which is the host district, and they've just been led through by the Dunmurry Protestant Boys Flute Band, giving us a rousing tune as they've arrived at the demonstration field.
Very good, very good. And they get the chance to go first because they're the host.
Yes, so the host district gets the honour of leading the parade, and of course the host district's been in charge of all the arrangements to welcome everybody here to Royal Hillsborough today as well.
Very good. And the first lodge was the Royal Hillsborough Junior Lodge 55, and it's really good to see the number of junior lodges that are on parade here today.
Yes, there's been a real explosion in the last few years, both of junior boys lodges and junior girls lodges as well.
And this is Royal Hillsborough flute band that are taking us off now. And the Royal Hillsborough District continues to come through. And you always notice that many of the bands have very colourful uniforms, Ian.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the bands over the last number of years have really upped the game just in terms of the kind of style of the uniforms, the musical instruments and so on. So actually the bands that we would remember from our youth are, you know, a pale shadow compared to the bands that we have today.
Yes, indeed. Well, I take issue with that because I used to be in a band when I was young, so I happen to think it was a very good band. Rossley accordion band, I'm just giving you a shout out today. say, because that's my my band that I was in when I was a child, and indeed when I was an adult as well. And this is the banner of Drumlock True Blues, and Drumlock was formed in 1849 and has had an influx, as we've been talking about recently, of and that's led to the renovation of their Orange Hall as well. And they have a pipe band bringing them in today, and it is really good to see the variety of bands here.
Very much so. And the band that's with Drumlock is the Harry Ferguson Memorial Pipe Band. So it's a band that's predominantly made up of children.
Yes.
They actually benefit quite a bit from the Ulster Scots Agency's tuition programme, and they're named after a famous Ulster Scot from this part of the world, who of course was Harry Ferguson, who revolutionised the agricultural industry.
Of course, the Ferguson tractor.
Absolutely.
If it's not red, keep it in the shed.
That's it. And Harry Ferguson ended up living in a mansion in the Cotswolds, which today is actually lived in by David and Victoria Beckham.
No, honestly.
Absolutely.
Goodness, you're full of information, and I didn't know the Ulster Scots Agency went that wide. And now Drumlock LOL 423 has gone down into the park where the demonstration is going to take place, and they're followed up by Star of Kilwarlen, and that's LOL 504.
So interestingly, Star of Kilwarlen there had on the of Derry.
Yes.
Which is another huge event from 1689 and the whole story of the Williamite Wars. Interestingly, Star of Kilwarlen have their banner in a way that I didn't expect there, because normally on an orange banner you see King William on the front.
Yes.
And the normal is that King William would be the first one into the field and the last one out. So you would show King William on the front on your way in, and then have him on the back on the way out. And actually, Star of Kilwarlen there had it the other way round.
And now coming up Hillsborough is Tullynore LOL 602. And they're celebrating their 200th anniversary last year, having been formed in 1825.
Yes, and one of the things that you'll see over and over again, it's on Tullynore's banneret there, the motif of the Crown and Bible and the Bill of Rights. We mentioned earlier on how this is very much a celebration of freedom. You will see things like that over and over again. A banner's just gone in there which had Britannia on it as well, and the slogan below that is Defenders of Freedom. So that theme of freedom and liberty comes up over and over again.
And they just have two pipers bringing them up. That's quite an unusual thing, isn't it?
Yes. Some of the smaller lodges might tend to do that. And you will also get some lodges today led by Lambeg drums on their own as well.
And I love the story you were telling me earlier about the Lambeg drum, because when Her Majesty the Queen came on her coronation tour in 1952, she was greeted by a Lambeg drum.
She was greeted by a party of drummers actually inside the precincts of Hillsborough Castle, and those drums were brought out again for on, I think it was the Diamond Jubilee that the Queen was at Stormont.
Yes, that she was.
So the same drums were played for that day, and I'm told that there also is a Lambeg drum surviving in this district here that was actually played by King Edward VIII whenever he was the Prince of Wales. So there's this kind of recurring theme of Hillsborough and Lambeg drums and royalty as well.
And I know County Armagh are always very keen to claim the Lambeg drums, but it's nice to hear of them in Hillsborough as well. Now, I think we're seeing Achallea district.
No, you're Glenavy.
Oh, we're now at Glenavy district. Glenavy district and Ballydonaghy.
They've changed their order just to keep us on our toes.
Ballydonaghy Temperance LOL 351, and they're being led by Ballydonaghy Pipe Band. And often you find that some of the lodges will have their own bands associated with them.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, there's an interesting thing here. I've just noticed that, and you'll find this more in rural areas, that the banner, and sometimes even the officers of the lodge as well, will walk in front of the band.
Yes, well, we do that in Fermanagh. Yeah, we do that in Fermanagh. So I'm going to leave the sights and sounds here in Royal Hillsborough. I hope you can join us again soon, and we're going to hand back to the studio to Tom and Emily.
Just a wonderful celebration that we can see there. Of course, people across Northern Ireland will be celebrating today, but also around the world. I mean, remarkable to see celebrations as far as Australia, Newfoundland, so many places that are celebrating our constitutional history here.
Yes, thank you very much, Arlene. We'll come back to you in a little bit, I'm sure. Some of you saying Dean says he loves watching the marches in Northern Ireland, love the passion and patriotism of it, being ex-military. It moves me. So there you go. We'll keep bringing you up-to-date coverage throughout the day. But in the meantime...
Absolutely. Back here, up to 1.6 million immigrants who arrived in Britain under the so-called Boris wave could be granted indefinite leave to remain after just 5 years instead of 10.
Yes, this comes as Shabana Mahmood's plans to double the wait for settlement face growing pressure from Labour backbenchers. Amid reports Andy Burnham's stance on migration is fuelling attempts to water down reforms.
Well, we're now joined by the Home Affairs spokesperson for the Reform Party, Zia Youssef. Now, Zia, let's be clear about this to start with. These are reforms that will toughen up the issue from the status quo, but instead of sort of 2 steps forward, there might have been 1 step back compared to where we were a week ago.
Well, the Boris wave of immigration was one of the biggest acts of vandalism against the British people ever perpetrated by their own government. You know, the Tories and Boris Johnson talk about 1.6. The real number, if you look at the number of immigrants who came in the blink of an eye just a few years under the post-Brexit outrageous regime Johnson implemented, north of 4.5 million visas. Half of those people do not work, never will. Most of them are from non-EU countries. Many of them came expressly to take advantage of our extraordinarily generous welfare state. We published some fiscal analysis of this on our website. We cost that at north of £600 billion to the taxpayer over the course of their lifetimes. And Shabana Mahmood sounded like she understood this. In fact, I think she does actually understand that this has the potential to bankrupt Britain. That's why actually she started expending some of her political capital inside the Labour Party and actually got some praise from the right wing of politics too in this country for doing so. But it turns out, I'm afraid, she is actually simply a subversive career politician willing to sell out her own people and her own country in the name of her own political ambition.
You talk about the potential cost to the country of benefits, etc., and the use of public service. But isn't this something that she's trying to prevent, though, even with these potential changes, saying that they would face waiting longer to qualify for benefits? So even if they're granted indefinite leave to remain, they won't have access to benefits for 10 years.
Yeah, it's complete nonsense for 2 reasons. So number one, if you're actually looking at the lifetime cost of something, all that does is kick the can down the road, right? You know, if you miss a couple of credit card payments, doesn't mean your debt goes down. That would be the first point. The second point, it's absurd on its face because she's given no indication she's going to change the wait for citizenship. So once you've granted someone ILR, they only then have to wait about a year or so to get citizenship, at which point they get a full buffet, breakfast, lunch and dinner on the welfare state anyway. And I want to make the point, you know, Reform, we're the only party saying that we are willing to reverse this vandalism, reverse the Boris wave. We have no choice because, number one, aside from the cultural damage this has caused on our country, I want to say it again, we're a country closing in on £3 trillion of debt. We're about to get another round of excruciating tax rises on the British people. How on earth are the British people meant to be told they've got to fork out around about £20,000 per household is what that 600 billion amounts to. So see this as exactly what it is. It is Andy Burnham handing the reins of the Labour Party and of government to the mad backbench Labour MPs and Shabana Mahmood, I'm afraid, betraying her own principles.
Well, you talk about reversing the Boris wave, which a lot of people will approve of, I'm sure, but how would you actually do that? Just send out notices to people who've been here for less than 5 years saying, sorry, you got to go now? How would that work in practice?
So we've already laid this out. There's a document about the abolition of indefinite leave to remain. Put simply, what we will do, we will end the status of ILR because it is effectively a scam on the British people. No serious country would operate like that. Number two, we would introduce a new renewable work visa program. And to qualify for that, look, our expectation of immigrants is simple. Number one, we expect you to more than pay your way economically. Number two, we expect you to speak English. And number three, we do not expect you to commit crime. Now, I think that's a perfectly reasonable set of expectations. And yes, those who do not meet that criteria will not be allowed to stay in Britain.
Now, clearly, this government is changing the rules in a way that is restricting the previous regime. Ultimately, the government's assessment is that a lot of these people have gone or will go home in the event of ILR taking longer to achieve. Do your calculations take into account the number of people who arrived, have done work for a bit, but actually have left or are planning to leave the country because of the tightening up of these changes?
Yeah, they do. The way that the government and the Home Office runs these numbers is based, again, on a total fallacy. I think it's willful blindness because, for example, they try to compare the behavior of a migrant that has come here from, for example, Eritrea or Somalia with one that, who earns a lot more money, who earns a lot less money, for example, if they work at all, than someone who had come from, say, Norway or Finland. And one of the most catastrophic things about the post-Brexit Tory immigration regime, why it was such a betrayal, is because Britain went from largely 80% EU, 20% non-EU migration to a complete inversion, north of 80% non-EU to 20% also EU. And that will have a big impact, of course, because for those people, the welfare state is far more attractive. So in fact, if anything, some of the more recent numbers that have come out of the Home Office around certain segments, so for example, they published some numbers around last year's asylum seeker intake. Those numbers would suggest our numbers might even be too low.
Nigel Farage, during the referendum, of course, said that he believed that the European Union freedom of movement disadvantaged people from the Commonwealth, suggesting that he might have wanted a more liberal regime for Commonwealth countries and a more restrictionist regime for those coming from the European Union. It seems in what you've just said, you would prefer exactly the opposite.
Hold on. Here's what I will prefer. We're going to need net negative immigration for a sustained period of time, considerably more people leaving Britain than coming. Part of that, of course, will be the mass deportation of the enormous stock, well north of 1 million, probably closer to 2 million illegal migrants in this country, Tom. So that's where we've got to start. We've got to get real. This country has had a population explosion. We are on a collision course with bankruptcy unless we take drastic and evasive action. And I'm afraid there was some glimmers of hope there from Shabana Mahmood. Even I thought, and I still do, I think she does in her heart know that what she is proposing now with this U-turn is accelerating the bankruptcy of this country. And that's what makes it all the more repugnant that she's willing to sell out her country and her principles just because she wants to stay in Andy Burnham's woeful government.
Zia Youssef, I'm sorry to do this in the middle of the interview. Would you mind just holding on for a moment? We've got some breaking news coming into us. We'd like your reaction off the back of this, if that is at all possible. We've got Charlie Peters in with us in the studio now to bring us some breaking news. Charlie.
The government has prescribed the IRGC, military wing of the Iranian armed forces. That's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. There had been advice against doing that from Jonathan Hall, the government's independent advisor on terrorism, because it would be particularly difficult to designate the armed wing of a state as a terrorist organisation. But it appears, this is information we're just getting from the lobby from number 10 Downing Street, the lobby briefing that's just been conducted, that the government has decided to prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. This is going to have widespread implications for British foreign policy, for UK criminal law, of course, as well, but also our diplomatic relations with Iran as well. We're one of the few Western nations of our prominence to have an embassy in Tehran. Will that be affected now? What might this mean for various protests and issues in the United Kingdom? But that decision just coming into us now that the government has decided to formally prescribe the IRGC.
Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed. Well, who better to get immediate reaction to that now than the Home Affairs spokesperson for the Reform Party, Zia Youssef. Your immediate reaction to the IRGC now being apparently prescribed by this government?
Well, how on earth has it taken over 2 years for this Labour government to do it? Why didn't the Tories do it all of those years ago? I mean, it's one of the most stunning and obviously ridiculous failures of British government policy that it wasn't done. This is a terrorist arm of a brutal regime that has actually attacked British sovereign territory in recent months. And I want to make the additional point, okay, well, if they're prescribed it, what actions are they going to take about the boats coming across the channel? We have long said this is a national security emergency. You both will know that our brilliant security services have successfully foiled multiple terrorist attacks by IRGC fighters, and credible reports in broadsheet newspapers suggest, according to military intelligence, some of those attempted terrorists came across the English Channel in a small boat. So if they are serious about prescribing the IRGC and saying that they are terrorists, if there were ISIS fighters coming across, coming into Britain across the Channel, what would we do? Well, we would use our military, wouldn't we? We would declare it a national security emergency. Here's what we wouldn't do. Just allow boat after boat containing hundreds and indeed now north of 200,000 people to keep coming. So that's what I'm going to be watching. Let's see what the actions are behind those words.
Now, Zia, I'd just like to say that very terribly sorry for the loss of Anne Widdecombe. I know you paid tribute to her over the weekend, a very, very sad loss. We are reading, though, that the Speaker of the House of Commons isn't very happy with you because of your concerns over the security of politicians, claiming, you made the claim, that the government doesn't care about the security of Reform MPs. Have you spoken to the Speaker of the House of Commons?
No, I have not. But what I have done is articulated the fact that the Speaker of the House received a letter from a female Reform MP pleading for assistance with regards to security concerns weeks ago, received absolutely no response from the Speaker of the House. And I made that public. Now, very quickly, she then did, what a coincidence, very quickly then received a response. And isn't it interesting that instead of actually denying that claim that I've made on the record, which he obviously wouldn't do because it's true, instead he appears to have called a multitude of tabloid newspapers and expressed the fact that his office is, quote, extremely angry about it. Well, what I am angry about is our Reform MPs. There was a Daily Mail headline that sort of implied, a lot of people took that to mean that the state was providing 24/7 security for Reform MPs. There's no such thing, sadly, is true. And Reform MPs are being told that they should be grateful that they have a, quote, direct line to the police in case somebody should try to murder them, and that the police, quote, know where their house is. I'm sorry, that's not what security means. And I'm going to say this again, it's not just about Reform MPs. If Reform win the next general election and I'm the Home Secretary, I will ensure that every MP and their families in this country feel safe, so that those MPs can articulate their views, even if I might disagree with them vehemently, that they can articulate these views. I'm afraid we barely have a democracy in this country because people are being hounded, people are being harassed. And so, yes, I stand by my claim. I just tweeted it again. It is unacceptable that, for example, the Speaker of the House failed to even respond to a Reform female MP. The fact that Reform MPs still are provided with negligible to no protection, and I am extremely concerned about their safety.
OK, well, Zia Yusuf, thanks indeed for joining us and for reacting to that breaking news a little earlier as well. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Well, for more on Anne Widdecombe, the man arrested on suspicion of murdering her is believed to have driven almost 300 miles to her home in Devon on the day of her death.
Well, our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, joins us now. Mark, we are learning more about this investigation.
Yes, the man who was arrested in Rotherham was arrested at 9 o'clock in the evening on Saturday and then taken from South Yorkshire down to the Devon and Cornwall Police Force area over the weekend. Now, we understand that he's being held and questioned at a police station in Exeter. And, of course, the clock is ticking in terms of how long the police have to continue questioning him before they then have to make a decision whether to either charge or release this individual. But they've got some time. They can have up to 4 days by going to a magistrate at various points to seek an extension. What we don't know really is how cooperative or otherwise this individual is being, and indeed what kind of evidence the police have. They'll have been here in very significant numbers, as we've seen filming over the weekend, forensic teams building up a picture of what exactly happened in Anne Widdecombe's home here in Hayter Vale last Wednesday lunchtime, when police believe that was when she was killed. They will have been gathering that forensics, looking for any match to a suspect as well. So, as I say, they may have quite a multitude of evidence, so we'll see in the coming hours whether any charges are forthcoming. If that's the case, then we'll have an initial court appearance at a local magistrate's court. As the investigation continues, some things the police say they are in a position, if not exactly to rule out, but at least give us a sense of direction in terms of where the investigation is going. They say that they found nothing at this stage to link the death of Anne Widdecombe to terrorism, and they say at this stage anyway they found nothing to suggest that it was a political act. But let's see in the fullness of time whether that actually is still borne out. And for the people of Hayter Vale, well, you know, their lives have been turned upside down by this. He knew Anne Widdecombe well. She was a popular member of the community here. There is a makeshift memorial garden in the local hotel here where dozens of flowers have been laid by people that have come from far and wide just to pay their respects to a woman that they say impacted their life and was a good and a decent woman.
Right, thank you very much indeed. Live there from Hayter Vale in Devon. We'll be back with you, of course, throughout the programme as we learn more.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Mark White there. Now, we've got a lot coming up on the show. We are going to bring you more reaction and news on that decision by the government to prescribe the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. We're also going to be discussing Andy Burnham. Apparently, he's planning a massive tax raid on the wealthy to fund some of his spending plans. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day for most today, quite windy across parts of the south, a cooler feel again across northern and eastern parts. The heat persists across the southwest. We've got a high pressure dominating to the north, low pressure to the south, and as they're squeezing together, that's generating a fairly brisk wind along the south coast in particular. It also has been pushing cloud in through the night, so a bit of a grey start over parts of the Midlands, East Anglia, and some of these eastern coasts may stay a little grey throughout the day. For most, though, it is sunny. It's not as hot as it was through the weekend. The peak of the temperatures, South Wales into southwest England, well, we should still get over 30 Celsius, but it is cooler along these North Sea coasts and generally across the northeast. There is the chance of a thundery shower coming up over the Channel Isles, possibly one or two getting into the southwest of England, but I think the vast majority will stay dry. We'll keep a bit of mist and low cloud at times along some of these coasts in the northeast, but for most it is a dry and sunny evening. The wind's light across Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. A pretty pleasant summer's evening to be had here. As we go through the night, there is a continued possibility of a flash of lightning, a rumble of thunder in the far southwest of England and over the Channel Isles. The cloud will seep back in overnight into eastern Scotland, the Midlands and eastern England as well. So again, another fairly drab start to Tuesday morning. The wind's easing a little along the south coast. Temperatures holding up in the south in particular, a bit more comfortable further north, 11 to 13 here. On to Tuesday, similar story, likely to start fairly dull, perhaps even as far as Wales. This mist and low cloud should clear away but may cling to some coasts. A continued small chance of a shower in the southwest at first, but most places, again, just sunny and a little hotter again tomorrow across the south.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M62 is closed between junctions 25 and 24 in West Yorkshire, with delays continuing between junctions 24 and 22. The M25 anti-clockwise is closed between junctions 16 and 15 near Uxbridge. The A40 westbound is closed after the A4137. The A264 westbound entry is closed after the M23 junction 11 in Pease Pottage. The A428 is closed after the A1. Across Wales, the A5 is closed in both directions at Menai Bridge following a bridge incident. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Watford Junction and London Euston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past midday. Now, is Andy Burnham planning yet another new tax raid?
There is some room within that manifesto for movement on tax.
So there you go. He said he wanted to stick to the manifesto. He will stick to the manifesto, but there's a little bit of space for manoeuvre when it comes to taxes. Well, according to new analysis by the Reform Party, the Prime Minister-to-be will raise £38 billion to fund a spending spree in office.
Well, the move would reportedly increase Labour's taxation from nearly £66 billion. Oh, this is the increase in taxation of the Labour government from nearly £66 billion of increased taxes over the last 2 years to over £100 billion of extra taxes.
OK, well, we're now joined by the Head of Advocacy and Policy at Tax Justice UK, Caitlin Boswell. Caitlin, can you stick to the manifesto and still make these kind of increases?
I mean, so at the moment, this is all still complete speculation, as Burnham hasn't actually made any firm commitments on tax. But I think it is really useful that we start having quite serious conversations about what this next formation of government will do, because we know that there are huge problems facing people in this country, with the cost of living repeatedly coming out on top as a key concern. And this leadership change, we shouldn't forget that it's happening in the context of a country where millions of people are struggling to get by, while the very richest continue getting richer, partly enabled by a tax system which allows them to pay lower effective tax rates than the rest of us. So I think it makes really clear.
What measure are you using for the richest getting richer in this country?
So we're talking about a context where we found out last year that 50 families now hold more wealth than half of the population, which is the equivalent of 34 million people. So inequality is spiralling.
So the measure that you're using is net assets of the top 50 people in the country.
Yeah, we're talking about wealth in its entirety, and this is exactly the wealth in this country which is currently not being taxed. And
net assets is a difficult measure to use, of course, because I mean, someone living on benefits in this country, for instance, on that measure would be more wealthy than Michael Jackson at the time of his death because of his enormous debts, despite his grandiose kind of living. It's a strange measure to use when you're trying to determine living standards, which is what we began this conversation talking about. I wonder if tax is actually the biggest problem here, when the supply side of the economy has been so shredded to bits over the course of the last 20 years or so. Wouldn't that be a better place to look in terms of increasing the welfare of people in the country?
Well, if you want to think about the welfare of people in the country, we know that record numbers of people are reliant on food aid, including people who are in work, at the same time as a small number of very rich and powerful people are accumulating more and more wealth that they are not being taxed on. So actually, if you want to think about improving ordinary people's lives, like your viewers at home, one of the only ways we can do that is through introducing a wealth tax on assets over 10 million, so that those with the very, very richest proportions pay a tiny bit more to support all of our communities to thrive.
OK, Caitlin Boswell, thank you very much indeed. We'll have to leave it there because we've got to move on, but appreciate your time. GB News has contacted Andy Burnham's office for a comment, so hopefully we might find out a little bit more.
But breaking news to bring you now. With that breaking news joins us Mark White from Heater Vale in Devon. Mark, what have we learned?
This is a major development in the murder inquiry into the death of Anne Widdecombe. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, now confirming that counter-terrorism police have taken over the investigation as lead on this inquiry going forward. Counter-terrorism police South East, the local counter-terrorism unit for this area, will be taking over that investigation. In a statement posted on the social media platform X, Shabana Mahmood has just said, following new information and evidence, the police, they are now leading, the counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the horrific murder of Anne Widdecombe. She goes on to say the police are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack. I will be updating the House further this afternoon. So a statement coming from the Home Secretary later this afternoon on what is clearly a very significant turn of events in the ongoing investigation into the suspected murder of Anne Widdecombe, with counter-terrorism police now leading that investigation. And this is puzzling, I have to say, because we all watched that news conference, that statement, I should say, that was given on camera by Devon and Cornwall Police yesterday afternoon, in which their Assistant Chief Constable, Matt Longman, stood up alongside his Chief Constable, the Chief Constable congratulating the force on British policing being at its very best in the way that they were leading this investigation. But Matt Longman saying that they've found no evidence to suggest that this was linked to terrorism, or no evidence indeed that there was a political motivation towards this. So given that they are now throwing this over to counter-terrorism police to take the lead on it, does that now also mean that they believe there may have been a political motive to that? These are the questions, clearly, that people are going to demand urgent answers to going forward. We may hopefully learn a bit more from Shabana Mahmood as she makes a statement to Parliament this afternoon. But as I say, a very significant and surprising turn of events, given the information that has been fed to us by Devon and Cornwall Police over the last few days.
Huge change in circumstances here. Mark, I wanted to ask you specifically on the words that Devon and Cornwall Police have used really since Friday, since their first press conference, saying they remained open-minded to the motive, but no evidence suggested terrorism or political motivation. They had found no evidence for it. Now in Shabana Mahmood's statement, she says, following new information and evidence. I mean, to the layperson, Mark, it sounds like the police didn't have any evidence that it was politically motivated or terrorism related, and now they've found some new evidence and terrorism police are involved. It sounds like they might have found the evidence that was lacking.
Well, yes, no, exactly. I think, self-evidently that appears to be the case that is being outlined here. To be fair to Devon and Cornwall Police, they were talking clearly on the circumstances and the information that they were faced with at the time of making that statement. But now that statement is upended, whether, as I say, it's perfectly acceptable and understandable for the evidence they had at that time. New evidence has come to light, which means it is now being led by counter-terrorism policing, which means that clearly the authorities believe that there is enough evidence and new information that's come forward that's leading them in the direction of terrorist-linked or potentially political motivated. I mean, the two sort of merge into each other in that sense. But of course, that will raise all kinds of questions, quite aside from this ongoing investigation into the horrific murder of Anne Widdecombe. Questions about the safety of politicians in general. We know that Reform, of which, of course, Anne Widdecombe was a member of, the Reform Party, are particularly concerned about the safety of their members, particularly their high-profile MPs and other party members. And they've been saying this, for some time. Indeed, I think Nigel Farage was criticised when he suggested over the weekend that it may have been politically motivated. People jumped on those words from Nigel Farage and said they were a bit ill-judged. Well, it may be that in the fullness of time, perhaps what Nigel Farage was saying does indeed have a truth to it.
White, thank you very much indeed for that update. Counter-terrorism police now leading the Widdecombe case. Let's head to Downing Street now, where our political editor Christopher Hope is. He's just left a briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesperson. Chris, a huge development here. Counter-terrorism police now leading this investigation into Anne Widdecombe's murder.
absolutely huge. And that this news broke from the Home Secretary after we left our briefing with the Prime Minister's official spokesman. So that is absolutely huge, and goes to some extent almost justifying the concern in recent days since the murder or the killing of Anne Widdecombe by Reform UK politicians. I should run you through what was discussed in the lobby briefing just now. You've heard before from Charlie Peters that the IRGC is now being prescribed as a terror organisation with two other groups. The Iranian ambassador has been summoned by the Foreign Secretary to be briefed about this today. That is a huge moment, I think, in UK, Iranian, and in fact widely in the Middle East in politics. Shabana Mahmood is going to today also amend the 1971 Immigration Act to allow the government to deport Shabir Ahmed. Now, talks are ongoing with the Pakistani government about why they won't take back this grooming gang's leader. Of course, he's no longer welcome in this country. That's been made very clear. Andy Burnham, the Prime Minister, has made clear he wants swift action on that. On the issue of Anne Widdecombe, the government says that they are loath to encourage anyone to speculate about what happened. It's important, they say, that the integrity of the work is carried out. On MP safety, the government says this: it's paramount MPs can go about their work, and there are rigorous protections for MPs in place. But you've heard already from Zia Youssef concerned about the lack of protection, he says, for Reform's 8 MPs. And elsewhere, of course, there's chat about the Falkland Islands. The government says there's no way that the Falkland Islanders were implanted there by the UK government to swing that referendum back in 2013. The Falklands will stay British. It's their right to self-determination. I should say, in terms of the handover of power, it is now all around me. If we can just show you what's happening in number 10 around this camera. Huge scaffolding is being erected here for the coronation of Andy Burnham as the Prime Minister this time next week. What is surprising to me is the lack of any scrutiny of Andy Burnham's plans in government. Today he'll be addressing his own MPs in a Zoom online tonight. Questions are being submitted by MPs. They're picked out and answered. That is private. We can't cover it, film it as GB News. And around here, even tomorrow, with a final cabinet meeting, Tom, the Prime Minister isn't inviting Andy Burnham to be there. So we should never forget that with all the other drama happening, of course, in the news, we are about to have a new Prime Minister with little or no scrutiny of what his plans are.
Chris Vogt, live from Downing Street, thank you very much indeed. We're going to go straight back to Cornwall now, where Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, is digesting the news of this serious shift in the case of Anne Widdecombe's murder. Mark, it seems like it has taken many days to get here. Let's not forget that the police originally thought that Anne Widdecombe might not have been murdered at all. This then became a murder investigation, and now this is potentially a terrorism investigation.
Yeah, listen, I think on complex investigations, information can come to light. Remember, you've got things like electronic devices that need to be interrogated, checked now. It can be difficult to gain access to them, bottoming out contacts, friends, associates of an individual in custody. That all requires people to speak to delve into the background of an individual. So I think, to be fair to counter-terrorism police, the detectives in general leading this investigation, it's a complex investigation, clearly. It can take some time to get for all the facts, the salient points to emerge. But we are where we are now, with clearly a very significant turn of events in this ongoing investigation, which is now being led by counter-terrorism policing. I've just had a statement through from Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor, who is the head of counter-terrorism policing in the UK. And interestingly, a man I interviewed just last week outside Scotland Yard about the increasing terror threat level in the UK, and a very sobering assessment from Assistant Commissioner Taylor at that time. But in this statement regarding his detectives now taking over this investigation, he said, building on the progress made by our colleagues in Devon and Cornwall Police, we now have new information and evidence that means counter-terrorism policing is now leading the investigation. We're pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack. and he uses the word attack now. Our priority is progressing the investigation quickly with all the capabilities we have available to us. If anyone has any information, he says, please share it with the police. And he goes on finally to say we would like to thank local communities, the wider public and the media for their ongoing support and patience, and we'd ask them to continue to support us in the next stage of the investigation. So there we've heard it from the man at the very top of counter-terrorism policing in the UK, Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor, telling us that his unit has now taken over this investigation because of that new information. They're working multiple lines of inquiry, and you heard it there in his own words, describing what happened to Anne Widdecombe as an attack.
OK, Mark White, thank you very much indeed for your time. We'll come back to you very soon for any further updates. Our Home and Security Editor, Mark White, there down in Devon. Shocking news, really. We've heard so much neighbours' reports about a potential suspect. Clearly changes in how the police are operating, how they're investigating this entire murder investigation. Counter-terrorism now leading the investigation. What does this mean going forward? Will we get more answers?
Well, I think a lot of people have struggled to get their head around how something like this could have happened without a clear and present motivation. Why would Anne Widdecombe, of all people, be targeted other than for who she was? I mean, it's not every day that a 78-year-old lady is beaten to death in her own home. I mean, it's a national story no matter who that person is, but the fact that this person was a currently serving politician, a spokesperson for a major political party, I mean, surely that is the starting point for
it's relevant. Yes, it must be relevant, at least. But I wonder what this says about all the a lot of people coming out to say how no one should be able to speculate on potential because there's an investigation ongoing. Will some people's thoughts be proven true? We'll find out, won't we?
Well, absolutely. And I think there's different levels to this. Obviously, no one should say anything to interfere with the police investigation. But ultimately, there are people who do really want to hear a lot more about it, and we will have much more on this development into Anne Widdecombe's murder after your latest weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day for most today, quite windy across parts of the south, a cooler feel again across northern and eastern parts. The heat persists across the southwest. We've got a high pressure dominating to the north, low pressure to the south, and as they're squeezing together, that's generating a fairly brisk wind along the south coast in particular. It also has been pushing cloud in through the night, so a bit of a grey start over parts of the Midlands, East Anglia, and some of these eastern coasts may stay a little grey throughout the day. For most, though, it is sunny. It's not as hot as it was through the weekend. The peak of the temperatures from South Wales into southwest England, well, we should still get over 30 Celsius, but it is cooler along these North Sea coasts and generally across the northeast. There is the chance of a thundery shower coming up over the Channel Islands, possibly one or two getting into the southwest of England, but I think the vast majority will stay dry. We'll keep a bit of mist and low cloud at times along some of these coasts in the northeast, but for most it is a dry and sunny evening. The wind's light across Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. A pretty pleasant summer's evening to be had here. As we go through the night, there is a continued possibility of a flash of lightning, a rumble of thunder in the far southwest of England and over the Channel Islands. The cloud will seep back in overnight into eastern Scotland, the Midlands and eastern England as well. So again, another fairly drab start to Tuesday morning. The wind's easing a little along the south coast. Temperatures holding up in the south in particular, a bit more comfortable further north, 11 to 13 here. On to Tuesday, similar story, likely to start fairly dull, perhaps even as far as Wales. This mist and low cloud should clear away but may cling to some coasts. A continued small chance of a shower in the southwest at first, but most places, again, just sunny and a little hotter again tomorrow across the south.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Monday, the 13th of July. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Well, huge breaking news this hour. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe. New information and evidence has come to light, according to the police. We're live in Devon throughout the programme.
Well, this is a major turn in the ongoing investigation. Scotland Yard's counter-terrorism officers out of Counter-Terrorism South East will now lead the investigation going forward in light of those new multiple lines of inquiry.
Set out today, emergency measures to deport the freed Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed.
Also, Falklands threat. Argentina rages at what they call illegitimate occupation of the Falkland Islands and claim native islanders are artificial implants.
And a huge blaze in North Wales has been declared a major incident as the heatwave sparks high-risk zones across Britain.
Well, enormous breaking news this hour. It's been 4 days since the tragic death of Anne Widdecombe, and only now are the police turning this to a terror probe. The Home Secretary released a statement in the last few minutes saying this: "This morning I've spoken to the head of counter-terror police. Following new information and evidence, they are now leading on the investigation into the horrific murder of Anne Widdecombe." So that's now new information, new evidence, leading to this terror probe.
Absolutely a shocking development there. Yes, the head of National Counter-Terrorism Policing, that's Lawrence Taylor, says this is building on the progress made by the police in Devon and Cornwall, but they have, as Tom says, this new information, this new evidence that now means Counter-Terrorism Police is leading this investigation. What does this mean? They say they still have multiple leads in terms of inquiry, lines of inquiry to establish the motivation, and that's what people desperately want to know. It was an absolute shock. A shock when we heard the news of Anne Widdecombe's death, when she was just due to be on the airwaves. She'd only been on the airwaves a few hours before. To hear that, the shock, I was away from the studio hearing this, it was almost unbelievable. And then to hear she was murdered, and now the Counter-Terrorism Police are taking control of this investigation. We will keep you up to date throughout the programme, so do stick with us here on GB News.
And the motivation matters, because it has implications, frankly, for the security of our wider politics.
Absolutely.
If this isn't an isolated incident, well, that then leads to much, much broader questions in our country, if indeed it turns out that this could be a political assassination. Well, do keep those comments coming in. gbnews.com/your say is the way to get involved with the programme, of course. We'll be right back with you after your latest news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Tom, Emily, thank you very much. Good afternoon. 3 minutes past 1. I'm Lewis Mackenzie here in the GB newsroom. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of former MP Anne Widdecombe. A 28-year-old man in custody has since been rearrested on suspicion of commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism. This comes as the suspect is believed to have driven almost 300 miles to her home in Devon on the day of her death. Devon and Cornwall police confirm they're not currently looking for any other suspects. Miss Widdecombe was found dead at her home in Devon on Thursday. Police believe she was killed nearly 24 hours earlier, around midday. Some more breaking news for you now. The government has announced that it is using its new powers to prescribe Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In a written letter, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood told Parliament that the UK has identified activity linked to the IRGC involving threats to life and intimidation on UK soil. It means it is now a criminal offence to invite support or express an opinion or belief that is in support of them, assist them in carrying out UK-related activities or engage in conduct likely to assist them, and accept or retain a material benefit provided by or on behalf of them. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will today also set out the legal steps she will take to deport the freed ringleader of a Rochdale grooming gang. Shabir Ahmed was jailed for 22 years in 2012 for multiple counts of child sexual offences, including rape. He was released from prison on licence earlier this month. Calls have mounted across the political spectrum for the deportation of Ahmed, who was stripped of his British citizenship following his conviction, leaving him with only Pakistani nationality. Well, those are your latest headlines for now. Let's get you finance.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.34 and 1.17 euros. The price of gold is at £3,032 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 10,498 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Well, it's 1:06. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. Now, a reminder of the breaking news this afternoon. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe, the murder of Anne Widdecombe, after new information and evidence came to light.
Well, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, said that the police are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack. And she plans to update the House of Commons later this afternoon.
Well, GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White joins us now from Devon. Mark, what does this mean for the investigation then? Counter-terrorism taking control. Does that mean that they believe this was an act of terrorism?
Well, yes, it certainly points to the evidence that they have, suggesting that there may well be some kind of a terrorism motive. That's why at this stage they are now taking the lead for the ongoing investigation. It's really interesting because clearly Devon and Cornwall police have been at pains to say right from the offset, in fact, on Friday after we learned about Anne Widdecombe's death, and then of course we learned that there was a murder inquiry, they said at that point nothing to suggest terrorism, and in every state given since they've said there is no evidence to suggest terrorism. Well, it seems that at some point since those statements have been made by Devon and Cornwall police, they have uncovered multiple lines of inquiry, according to the police. That now means that the Home Secretary is posting on social media this very significant turn of events. She will be making a statement to the House of Commons this afternoon. There's, of course, also a great deal of concern, especially from members of the Reform Party, about MPs and politicians' security going forward. That was to be the basis of discussions in Parliament, but now, of course, this latest turn of events in the ongoing Anne Widdecombe murder investigation will also be to the fore of what is being debated and discussed in the Commons this afternoon, although unlikely that Shabana Mahmood will be able to shed much light beyond what they have already said at this point, given the ongoing nature of that investigation. Now, just a short while ago, we received a statement from the head of counter-terrorism policing, Lawrence Taylor, Assistant Commissioner at Scotland Yard, and he said, building on the progress made by our colleagues in Devon and Cornwall, we now have new information and evidence that means counter-terrorism policing is now leading the investigation. We're pursuing, he says, multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack, he describes it as. Our priority is progressing this investigation quickly with all the capabilities we have available to us. If anyone has any information, please share it with the police. And he goes on to thank the local community and the media and others for their help and their patience in this ongoing investigation. I mean, the one thing about counter-terrorism policing leading the investigation is that they have absolute expertise in these very significant, major, complex investigations going forward. So that's certainly welcome that their expertise will be used. What is more, of course, sobering is the realisation that we may now be heading down the path towards a formal declaration of Anne Widdecombe's death as a terrorist attack.
Why, there is a 28-year-old white British man in custody, isn't there? Hearing that he has been rearrested on suspicion of commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism. What will the police now be wanting to find out? We hear there are many lines still of inquiry. This is coming from the Counter-Terrorism Policing South East.
Yeah, the first thing to say about a rearrest under counter-terrorism legislation is that that gives the police much more leeway in terms of how long they have to detain and question a suspect before they have to charge them. So it's normally a week, but they can have up to 2 weeks, which when you compare that to the 4 days that currently existed under PACE, an investigation into a murder that wasn't politically or terrorism motivated. that was 4 days. Now that it's being led by counter-terrorism policing and that this individual has been rearrested under terrorism powers, as I say, that gives them that leeway of up to 14 days to then carry out more in the way of investigations, because by their very nature, terrorism investigations are often much more complex than, to coin a phrase, a straightforward sort of murder, because often there, is a history, perhaps a sort of an extremist background, links to other extremists, information that may have been gleaned on the internet, as I say, interaction with other individuals that might be of an extremist bent. There's all kinds of very complex issues when you get into the world of terrorism that often mean that the nature of investigating that is a lot more difficult and a lot more protracted, which is why a few decades back the legislators gave the police that bit more time in dealing with terrorism cases.
Absolutely fascinating, but also galling. I mean, many people will be thinking, why did we not know this earlier? Why were counter-terror police not involved in this case, frankly, over the weekend? I know that the arrest of this particular suspect, there was one earlier suspect that was perhaps a wrong lead, and was it yesterday that this particular suspect was arrested, potentially leading to that further investigation and then this current shift in the investigation?
Right, so that first arrest you quite rightly allude to there, Tom, that was the arrest of a 26-year-old man just down the road in Newton Abbot. It's only about 24 miles from here. You get this all the time in ongoing investigations of any kind. You'll often get people that are arrested for, their vehicle might have been seen in the area, or there may be something else that links them to this area at this particular time, and they're, brought in, they're questioned, and often then just ruled out of the investigation. And this individual was very definitely ruled out. The police said that going forward, this individual has, will play no part in the ongoing investigation. Then this second man, the 28-year-old, well, he was arrested in Rotherham at 9 o'clock on Saturday night. So the next day after this 26-year-old was released. So he was arrested. Again, this was with help from counter-terrorism police, but not because it was a counter-terrorism investigation at that point, but just because of their specialist skills in sort of dealing with, as they did, counter-terrorism specialist firearms officers who were brought in to effect this arrest. So that happened. The individual was then brought down to Devon and Cornwall. We understand he's in the Exeter area at the moment being interviewed. We don't know if he might be moved at some point. I would imagine not, given that, they have the facility here. Detectives here have been sort of dealing with it initially. It's probably more advantageous to get the counter-terrorism police, as they now will be, into the Devon and Cornwall Force area to carry out their investigations here, of course, and also to then continue interviewing this man who is now detained under these terrorism powers.
These terrorism powers, of course, have been controversial in the past, although we can clearly see why the police sees them as being necessary. This investigation will have been off the back of new information being found. The Home Secretary has said as much. What do we think might have been found? I mean, of this particular individual who is now in custody, they will have searched his home, presumably. They will have searched his electronic devices. There may be connections. There may be a manifesto. We just don't know.
And that's why I think, you have to cut the Devon and Cornwall Police a little bit of slack here in terms of the time it's come before we're now formally sort of seeing the counter-terrorism unit taking over this investigation. It may not have been apparent first glance by the arrest of this individual that there were potential links to terrorism. And as you quite rightly mentioned there, Tom, you have what is a secondary phase, this protracted investigation that's multi-pronged, that looks at the electronic devices on computers, on phones. It can be often difficult to impossible to get into these devices without the cooperation of either the suspect, and if not the suspect, then the likes of the sort of the phone companies, who are often very reluctant to get involved down that particular path for obvious reasons in terms of their customer security. So that can be difficult then for the police to get timely and quick information on an individual. And then there's the delving into the person's background and speaking to people that this person might have been in contact with. And through contacts, some of these contacts could be extremist in nature. We don't know. We're speculating, which we're obviously told not to, but it's difficult to do that. Remember, at the start of this investigation, we're told by the police, no links to terrorism or no political motivation, don't speculate. And now, 5 days down the line, we're told, it's now being held by terrorism police. So difficult not to talk and to sort of go through what the possible scenarios are, given all of that.
Well, absolutely, and people just fundamentally deeply care about what the motivation could be. But Mark White, we'll leave it there for the moment, because we're going to speak to Paul Birch, former police officer and counter-terrorism specialist. Who better to speak to about this? Paul, we now know counter-terrorism are leading this investigation. We know the suspect currently has been rearrested on suspicion of the commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism. What does this mean going forward now for the investigation?
Well, pretty much to echo what Mark said, really, it gives the police officers more time, particularly going through the suspect's electronic devices. That can take an awfully long time, as Mark suggested.
Sorry, just on that point, just on that point with the electronic devices, in a normal police-led investigation, would that be very difficult indeed because of privacy reasons or legal or regulations around that? If there's terrorism involved, are they able to expedite that process? Are they immediately able to get into those devices?
Well, if we look along the conventional route of asking the person arrested to provide access to devices, if they refuse that under terrorism legislation, that's a specific offence.
Right.
So that the legislation is slightly different around terrorism matters, but you still have the security going through the companies. And if we're looking at social media, encrypted social media, you sometimes have to go through international processes to get the American authorities to compel the social media providers, because most of them are American, to provide access to that person's account. So in a case like this, where someone has been brutally murdered, I don't suspect that anything will be held up in that regard. All that will be done very, very quickly, very, very expeditiously. And also with counterterrorism investigations, you have many more resources to throw at it. Another reason they declare sometimes incidents as terrorist incidents, it means immediately get priority, you immediately get more resources. And a counterterrorism policing in the UK is administered on a regional basis, not a county basis. So Devon and Cornwall Police will have assistance from a whole sort of regional team of counter-terrorist specialists. All those factors play a part. But to echo what Mark was saying, it's different legislation, it's different periods in custody. Everything gets much more serious, much more quickly and ramped up.
Now, Paul, just very briefly, how often are there false positives in counter-terrorism investigations? Obviously, counter-terror police are leading this investigation now. That doesn't mean that it is 100% definitely a terrorist incident. but it does point us in that direction.
Yes. I mean, they've clearly looked at something this individual has either in his home address or on his devices, which has raised the red flag. Something has given the senior investigating officers enough information to suggest, okay, this is a terrorist motivated incident. I mean, you wouldn't. The idea of randomly driving 300 miles down the road to attack a random elderly lady, and it happens to be Anne Widdecombe, that just seemed a little bit remarkable, to be honest. I think they were initially going down the mental health route, but no, there can be false positives, but they wouldn't publicly declare it as such unless they were quite certain, because to row back on that means they would lose a bit of faith and they would be subject to criticism. So I would think they're fairly sure that it is.
Absolutely. Well, Paul Birch, thank you very much indeed for your time on this matter. Former police officer and counter-terrorism specialist.
Well, let's speak now to the former Detective Chief Inspector, David McKelvey. David, the police is going to come under some scrutiny, frankly, for changing its mind on this. Obviously, they will say new information has come to light, but already there are political voices saying, what trust can we have in the police when for a long time they were intimating that there was nothing politically motivated here at all?
Yeah, I think that's not great. And I think the fact that, you had counter-terrorism CT officers arresting this suspect in the first place was unusual, to say the least. And you reflect back on what happened at Southport, and it's not a great look. Clearly, there were concerns, and as Paul just said, the reality is you don't have to be the greatest detective in the world to realise that if someone travels 270 miles to commit a murder, if they are guilty of that murder, then there has to be a motive, and that motive is potentially political or terrorist related.
And this is why some people find it very difficult indeed to not speculate, because they see evidence, or what appears to be evidence, reported in the press. They hear about someone travelling all the way 300 miles, 270 miles, whatever distance. We hear from neighbours on the scene that the suspect may have been carrying a wooden stick, a baton, whatever you want to call it. And so people will speak naturally about what it potentially could have been motivating, but we are being told not to speculate at all. I'm talking about the public, of course. It's very, very difficult, isn't it, when you hear drib-drabs of information?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as I said, you don't have to be a genius to work out there's something more to this. I think they've ruled out the sort of burglary option quite early on, and they've stated they're not looking for anybody else in relation to this. So whatever they have found is quite significant. And, the fact they've now brought in, well, they haven't just brought in CT were clearly involved in this from very early on. So whether or not it was a mistake not to, rule it out in the very beginning and all the way up till now is questionable. But that's a decision for, senior officers, the people at the coalface doing the work. They just get on with their job, do their job to the best of their ability. That's the reality.
And what sort of new evidence and information could have come to light to make this now an investigation led by the counter-terrorism police?
Well, they'd have secured all of the phone data, potentially any car analytics if it was a later model car. They'd have ANPR data. They'd have all sorts of IT options available to them. And again, it may be that just a neighbour or someone with information has come forward and says, you need to look at this. They'll have the computers and everything else there. So it'll be a slow time evidential gathering situation now, where they'll gather that evidence, put it all together, and clearly they'll identify what the motive really was, and also, get that evidence to a point where hopefully they can charge and potentially convict this person if he's responsible.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and really do appreciate your thoughts and expertise on this. Former Detective Chief Inspector David McKelvey.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has announced Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will be designated a threat to national security. We'll also continue our coverage of this huge breaking news, of course, that counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe. That's after new information and evidence has come to light.
All of that and indeed more to come with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdley, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
the late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
Because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It is now 1:29, and a reminder of that breaking news today. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe after new information and evidence has come to light.
Yes, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, said that the police are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack, and that she plans to update the House of Commons later this afternoon.
Well, we're now joined by the Labour MP for St Austell and Newquay, Noah Law. This is terribly shocking news. Up to this point, we had no idea of a potential motive. Now we hear the counter-terrorism police are leading this investigation. The suspect has been rearrested on suspicion of that.
Yeah, it's really important that that motive is established, and obviously a signal there that it's important to have the counter-terrorism police involved. Of course, that doesn't mean that we should really speculate any further at this point, but I would say to some degree it's reassuring to ensure that all of those potential avenues for different motives are established.
I mean, now that the counter-terrorism police are investigating this could very possibly be, perhaps now likely to be, the third political assassination in this country in a decade. Jo Cox, Sir David Amess, Anne Widdecombe. Do you, as a serving Member of Parliament, worry about the rising level of political violence in the country?
I think obviously it's unhelpful to speculate at this point, but I certainly worry, Tom. It really is a frightening time, and I'm very grateful to all of the law enforcement, to all of the support we get from the Speaker and across the House. It's really important that we put in place the measures to manage that, and also that we help the public to understand why some of these perhaps seemingly heavy-handed measures, whether that be local security availability for surgeries and the like, why that's come into place. Because clearly these are times where I think the discourse has gotten out of hand, but also the actions that people are taking as a result of some of our political discourse is getting out of hand as well.
We are due to hear more today, aren't we, in the House of Commons on this matter. Of course, we're likely to get an update on the investigation now from the Home Secretary, but also about that wider point, security of politicians. What can we expect? What do you know?
So, as you say, we'll have to wait for the statement in the House.
Do you have an inkling of whether it will be more resources or...
Well, I think there's an acceptance across the House, across all parties, that there does need to be a further ratcheting up of security measures. That's not to make us more distant from our constituents by any means. If anything, it means that we can have more confidence in going about our day-to-day business in and around the constituency. It is needed. That needs to be the direction of travel towards more security as a point of course. I hope one day that we can get the country back to a place where we can taper that back again. But for the moment, it's clear where the direction of travel needs to be.
OK. Well, it's a busy day for the Home Office, obviously, not just with the change in the investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe, but also landmark legislation before the House of Commons today on changing what's known as indefinite leave to remain for recent migrants. There is some criticism that the original changes that Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, put forward have now been somewhat watered down. That for some people who came here in recent years, they will no longer have to wait 10 years before they're given this status, but just 5.
Yeah, and I think obviously many MPs wrote in expressing concerns about the sort of retroactive application of some of the changes to ILR. I don't think it's particularly British to apply some of these rulings retroactively to people that may have come here to work in our NHS, work during the pandemic, people that yes may be part of the Boris wave of migration, but ultimately are now kind of working here, living their lives.
What do you think,
normal.
Do you think that if someone comes here, works in the NHS for a bit, that therefore they deserve British citizenship and everything that goes with that? Is that just the bar?
I think it's the retroactive application that needs to be dealt with in my mind. So countries
are allowed to always change their immigration policies. They're allowed to say, hang on, you've worked here for a bit. We're not going to give you British citizenship. That doesn't seem too harsh, does it?
Absolutely, and I think, it's just a question of where is that line drawn? We've already drawn a very strict line. That's why net migration has come down massively under this Labour government. That was our manifesto promise. We're delivering on that. And of course, it's just about finding the right line to draw. But as far as I'm concerned, if you're here and you're working here and contributing to the economy and have been for some time, brought here on a sort of promise, if you will, of being able to settle.
If you're not working, you'd say, actually, we're not going to give you indefinite leave to remain.
For me, the key broad thrust of our migration reform does have to be towards supporting, where we can, key workers and making sure that we're prioritising those who are really contributing.
I think people want you to prioritise British workers, though.
Yes, and that's
not
absolutely...
to hand out citizenship as if it's a sweetie. It could be potentially 1.6 million people who are given British citizenship.
By bringing down net migration to the lowest levels by far in recent years, we are already prioritising British workers under this Labour government.
Can I drill down on what you mean by the word retrospective? Are you talking about people who have already been granted ILR status, indefinite leave to remain, which I think most people would understand to mean retrospective, taking the status away from someone who's already got it? Or do you mean people who have come here with the understanding that in 5 years they can get this status, but have not yet been conferred that status on them? Which of those two?
I think it's, for me, personally, it's the latter, because we do have to...
But that's not retrospective.
No, I think the question is under what terms did you come to choose and build a life, contribute to our economy here? That has to be part of the discussion in my mind.
There's a long-standing convention in the House of Commons, a convention that, actually, interestingly, today is being undone for one particular rapist. But there is a long-standing convention that once someone is given a status, you don't strip that from them. What you're talking about almost seems like a linguistic bait and switch for people that have not got ILR status, but you're saying it would be retrospective to not give them ILR status.
I understand. I do understand the distinction, and I think you're right to say that, you know, those are two separate sort of levels of retrospective application. I think it's quite clear, however, in this case, that the public are looking at us to be consistent, and I think being consistent here is understanding a situation where many people came here during the Boris wave, many of whom are key workers, and actually looking to strike that balance at the same time when migration levels have reduced so much under this Labour government.
That's really interesting. Just really quickly and finally, do you think that the incoming ministry, the Burnham ministry, the people around him, Miatta Fahnbulleh, Ed Miliband, are they much more of your line of thinking? Because it seems that you've got a bit of a disagreement there with the current Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood.
Well, I've made my personal views clear on the matter. I can't speak for the incoming administration, because obviously they are not the ones laying the legislation coming forward today. So we'll have to see what that brings.
OK.
I think you wouldn't want to differ too much, though, from the incoming Prime Minister. Noah Orr, thank you very much indeed. Appreciate your time. Labour MP for St Austell and Newquay.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's lots more still to come on today's programme.
Yes, we're going to continue our coverage of the huge breaking news. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe. That's after new information and evidence has come to light.
Well, do stay with us. All of that and much more to come. You're with Good Afternoon Britain here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day for most today, quite windy across parts of the south, a cooler feel again across northern and eastern parts. The heat persists across the southwest. We've got a high pressure dominating to the north, low pressure to the south, and as they're squeezing together, that's generating a fairly brisk wind along the south coast in particular. It also has been pushing cloud in through the night, so a bit of a grey start over parts of the Midlands, East Anglia, and some of these eastern coast may stay a little grey throughout the day. For most, though, it is sunny. It's not as hot as it was through the weekend. The peak of the temperatures, South Wales into southwest England, well, we should still get over 30 Celsius, but it is cooler along these North Sea coasts and generally across the northeast. There is the chance of a thundery shower coming up over the Channel Isles, possibly one or two getting into the southwest of England, but I think the vast majority will stay dry. We'll keep a bit of mist and low cloud at times along some of these coasts in the northeast, but for most it is a dry and sunny evening. The wind's light across Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. A pretty pleasant summer's evening to be had here. As we go through the night, there is a continued possibility of a flash of lightning, a rumble of thunder in the far southwest of England and over the Channel Isles. The cloud will seep back in overnight into eastern Scotland, the Midlands and eastern England as well. So again, another fairly drab start to Tuesday morning. The wind's easing a little along the south coast. Temperatures holding up in the south in particular, a bit more comfortable further north, 11 to 13 here. On to Tuesday, similar story, likely to start fairly dull, perhaps even as far as Wales. This mist and low cloud should clear away but may cling to some coasts. A continued small chance of a shower in the southwest at first, but most places, again, just sunny and a little hotter again tomorrow across the south.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M62 is closed between junctions 25 and 24 in West Yorkshire, with 20-minute delays westbound between junctions 26 and 25. The M25 anti-clockwise is closed between junctions 16 and 15 in Uxbridge. The A264 westbound entry is closed after the M23 at Pease Pottage. In Scotland, the A977 is closed both ways between Kilbaggy roundabout and Ferrogate. Across Wales, the A5 is closed both ways at Menai Bridge following a bridge incident. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between Watford Junction and London Euston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Well, it's 1:41. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. Now a reminder of that breaking news this afternoon. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe. That's after new information and evidence came to light.
Well, the journalist and commentator Emma Trimble now joins us. And Emma, I'm worried about, frankly, people's faith in our security services, trust in the police, in the communication particularly of the police, given for 4 days we were told, or at least it was heavily implied, that this was not a politically motivated murder. And now it's seemingly heavily implied that it is.
Well, there are lots of different aspects to this that I think are a cause for concern as far as the public see it. The first is, of course, we've seen plenty of other examples of the police having bad communication with the public, and the fact that that then leads to all sorts of other issues. As you say, they have been saying that this was not politically motivated. Of course, by definition, terrorism is motivated by either it's violence against someone for political reasons, religious reasons, or other ideological reasons. So we don't know, of course, what the motivation was specifically here, but it will have been motivated by some kind of ideology by definition. And that, of course, was something that the police seemed to be denying, even at the point when they didn't have the suspect. So they didn't really know. I think the thing that most people would have appreciated from the police would have been for them to say quite straightforwardly, we don't know what the motivation is because we don't yet have the suspect, rather than to make it seem as if they're just trying to prevent people from worrying about the obvious, which, as you mentioned earlier, Tom, is that we've already seen 2 MPs prior to Anne Widdecombe being murdered in terrorist incidents. So David Amess was murdered by an Islamist and, of course, was a good friend of Anne Widdecombe's. We're seeing heightening tensions throughout, general elections, local elections, concerns that people have about the direction that our country is taking, and that we're starting to, it seems, tip into a kind of political violence that has been more common in the United States. And I think people are very worried about
the conversation, isn't it? And something we're going to be hearing about later in the House of Commons, security of our politicians, talking about now 3 potential political assassinations in a decade. Why are we in this place, Emma, in your view?
Well, I think part of this is that we haven't managed to get under control. Without obviously speculating, because we don't know exactly what the motivation here was, but we do in previous instances, with the example of David Amess, we failed to get Islamist terrorism properly under control. I think we're starting to see the kind of fragmentation and breakdown of our democracy. People feel that whatever they vote for doesn't make a difference. And when you have people becoming disenchanted with their power to change things at the ballot box, people do start to turn towards other forms of how they think that they might be able to change things. And, it's obviously never legitimate to turn to violence, but I think that we are seeing a kind of a change in our political culture that is the result of a decline in the democratic culture of freedom of speech, of respectful engagement, all of those things actually that Anne Widdecombe so firmly stood for. She always respected her opponent's opinions and always engaged with people in an upright and proper way. And I think that that's something that is being lost in our political culture and in our culture more broadly.
Well, Emma Trimble, thank you very much indeed for your time. Journalist and commentator there. A very sad day, a very concerning day with this news that counter-terrorism are now taking control of this investigation. We are going to bring you more reaction on that news coming up on the show as well.
Also today, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will be designated as a threat to national security, indeed designated a terror organisation.
What exactly does that mean? But if you are in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. The heatwave continues across much of Europe. Central and southern parts of France in particular could see temperatures in the low to mid-40s. Along with the high temperatures, lots of dry, sunny weather to continue across many areas, though the humidity could be enough to spark off some thunderstorms across northern parts of Italy, Austria, Slovenia, potentially parts of Croatia as well. The sunshine continues this week alongside the hot temperatures, widely in the high 30s to low 40s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Yeah, Cameron, Miriam, it's certainly feeling hot here today, 30 degrees, and it's only going to get hotter, of course, across the country. Many people feeling the heat as well. But those red weather warnings for extreme heat in place, saying that this heat could even cause a risk to life, urging people to take precautions. But spare a thought for people working in this heat, particularly those in kitchens. We can't come to the beach without a fish and chip shop. This is the Modern World Fish and Chip Shop in Brighton, and Ibram runs it. Ibram, just how hot is it inside your kitchen today?
It's an absolute scorcher, actually. It's okay. We're just about coping. We're taking precautions. We reduced one fry from 2 fries. We're down to 1. There's not much sales in food at the moment. It's mostly people trying to keep hydrated. Waters, soft drinks, ice creams, beers.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And the reason why Alex's head is a little bit sore this morning is because we are Trick Award winners.
Yes.
Again. For the 4th year in a row. We're absolutely delighted, aren't we? We're buzzing with this.
We are. And, yeah, I need some more sleep.
Listen to that voice. You sound like Orson Welles.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Hey, everybody. Got a very
Alex went
sultry voice today.
Yeah, you sound good. You sound good.
Okay,
but you went for celebratory drinks last night, didn't you?
Yeah, you could put it that way.
Yeah.
You could put it celebratory
How's the
drinks.
head this morning?
Yeah, I think that the hangover's coming. Let's put it that way. Hangover is still due.
Oh, there you are. Look, there we
look.
are. GB News Breakfast winner. So it was in the news category yesterday, and we are absolutely delighted that you chose us because it is voted for by you.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, that is the question. Good morning to you both. It is very hot. Right now it's 25 degrees. Ordinarily it might be this temperature about midday, but no, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, it's 25 degrees, and temperatures set to soar throughout the day into the mid-30s. If it gets higher than 35.1 degree today, then today will be the hottest day of the year. Many people forecasting that we could reach that threshold today, so that's one to look out for. But as you can see, many people keeping cool today. Somebody's here in the water. We've got people out to sea swimming as well, and many on the shoreline enjoying this hot weather, including John here. I can speak to now. John, thanks for joining us this morning on GB News. Have you been in the sea yet? How are you keeping cool?
Yeah, I went in the sea. We were down about 7 o'clock this morning. Literally dived straight in.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 10 to 2, and Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will be designated a threat to the nation's national security.
Yes, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said members could face up to life imprisonment as the UK cracks down on foreign state proxies.
Well, our national reporter Charlie Peters joins us now. Charlie, this brings with it complications. There will now be fears for British citizens in Iran, the British embassy in Iran, and frankly the channels of communication that we use that advantage some of our allies, like the United States.
Yes, Tom, that has been one of the key reasons for not prescribing the IRGC in recent years, with many critics of those proponents of those proposals saying that actually having a link to Iran and not prescribing one of the wings of their military, which is what the IRGC is, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, it's an asymmetric wing of their armed forces, that would risk our ability to be an opportunity for influence in the region. It's why the British embassy was evacuated from Tehran the day before the war started in February. There's also been other criticisms, particularly around how difficult it is to prescribe a non-state actor and then a state actor, those differences being blurred. But that's now changed through the National Security State Threats Bill that was introduced to the House of Commons last week. That adds new provisions, a category called designated bodies. That's organisations believed to be involved in foreign power threat activity. This has been a key area of criticism from terrorism specialists and security analysts, particularly Jonathan Hall KC, who's the independent reviewer of terrorism legislation. He looks at these processes that he said in 2023 would not be possible really to prescribe the IRGC in its current form. That's why the law has changed. What will that mean? Well, anyone who shows support for the IRGC could face up to 14 years in prison from these new laws when they are tabled and passed, we expect, later by the government in the Commons. It would also mean that the IRGC, sending them any money, being involved in any material support, would also face similar levels of prosecution. There are two other groups that are being targeted in this new legal move that we've heard about from the government today. That is the Islamic Movement of Companions of the Right and also the Volunteer Corps of Russia's GRU, which is their MI6. Now, that's very interesting because one of the main criticisms of those who said we couldn't prescribe the IRGC was that we had previously prescribed the Wagner Group, which is a state-linked organisation in Russia, has been involved as a mercenary organisation, but is very much controlled and directed by the Kremlin, very close ties there. This is bridging that gap in a more sophisticated organisation like the IRGC. So it's interesting that Russia's GRU, a volunteer corps, they're also falling under that umbrella. With regards to the IMCR, that other group I mentioned, they faced accusations that they've been involved in plotting some of those recent arson attacks that we've seen in the United Kingdom. I won't go into any specifics or details there because many of those are ongoing and active cases, but you'll be aware, our audience will know about various arson attacks on Jewish sites that have taken place this year, said to be involving that organisation.
Just on that, Charlie, just very quickly, how many supporters of this organisation do we think we have in this country?
Well, that is what MI5 will know, and because it's top secret, I can't tell you that now.
Well, we'll end on that then. Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed for your time. That is a huge development that the IRGC finding a huge amount of pressure on Labour to do this.
Well, but of course, up until the law changed, they haven't been able to because it's an arm of the Iranian government, and I think I'm right in saying that that would have meant that had we prescribed it earlier, though you wouldn't have been able to have any diplomatic connection with Iran at all. So that law change highly necessary.
Well, it's Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. Yes, today the Home Secretary will set out emergency measures to deport this man, the freed Rochdale grooming gang ringleader Shabir Ahmed. We'll also bring you up to date on the case of Anne Widdecombe's murder. But let's take a look at the weather.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Yes, it is time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine, warm summer's evening for most. Still quite breezy across the south and the east, where it is also still quite chilly on the east coast. Under high pressure, the wind's coming in from the sea. There's also low pressure to the south and a bit more cloud spreading in across the Channel Islands. May just provide one or two showers. A small chance of a flash of lightning or a rumble of thunder. But if you're after any rain, well, I don't think we're going to see much of that. Most places staying dry and staying staying clear. The cloud will seep back in across these eastern areas as we go through the night. But further west, it stays clear. A reasonably comfortable night, certainly across northern Britain. Temperature in rural spots down into single figures, so not as hot as many nights have been so far through this summer, but still pretty warm across the south. Another very warm, sunny day to come for most tomorrow. Cracking day in western Scotland. The east coast will be plagued by that harsh, certainly initially. Lots of sunshine to come for Northern Ireland on Tuesday, northwest England, but northeast England down across the Midlands, even into East Wales. Some of this cloud may well have spread in by first thing tomorrow morning, making for a bit of a grey start here. Might even be a little bit of light rain and drizzle, but that should fizzle quickly. The cloud will tend to gradually melt away. Some of the coasts may stay a little misty, and certainly on that east coast it will be rather fresh with this breeze, but generally the wind's lighter than today, certainly across the south, and lots of sunshine to come. A little hotter again on Tuesday, particularly over the Midlands, the southeast, 31, 32. It will be cooler on those North Sea coasts, more likely to be in the high teens. Not a great deal of change through Tuesday evening, keeping our eyes down across France, where there's always the possibility of thunderstorms drifting up. That'll be a continued chance through the rest of this week, but if you're after rain, no real sign of it. Lots more sunshine to come over the next few days.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsor.
It's a great British giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We needs to stop. You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition, from 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Monday, the 13th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. Now, huge breaking news.
Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe after new information and evidence has come to light. We're live in Devon throughout the programme.
Well, a very significant development in this murder inquiry, as the death of Anne Widdecombe is now being treated as an act of terrorism. Multiple new lines of inquiry have forced counter-terrorism police to take over the investigation from Devon and Cornwall Constabulary.
Elsewhere, the IRGC, that's Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, will be designated a threat to national security, prescribed as a terrorist organisation with members facing up to life imprisonment. That's what the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said.
Today, the Home Secretary will set out emergency measures to deport the freed Rochdale grooming gang ringleader, Shabir Ahmed.
And elsewhere, Argentina rages at what they call the illegitimate occupation of the Falklands, and they claim native islanders are artificial implants.
I think the police have got a problem with communication.
Yeah.
Because it is absolutely... They said nothing wrong over the last 4 days. They just emphasised it in a very peculiar way. They were asked, of course, was there a political motivation behind this? Is this being treated as a terrorist organisation or a terrorist incident? And the police kept saying, we have absolutely no evidence to suggest that this is a politically motivated attack. And that was completely true. They didn't have evidence at that point to suggest it, but the way they said it made it sound like we're ruling it out.
Yeah.
And they hadn't ruled it out. Every option was open to them. They had an open mind as to the different motives that this apparent murder could have been caused by.
So why did they say that? We have an open mind, we don't know yet, we're not far enough in our investigation?
Yeah.
That would be more understandable to people. But then, of course, people get told off for speculating, which people shouldn't do. But when you're given this type of information, and you hear various reports in the press, you hear that a suspect has travelled 270 miles to a reformed spokesperson's private home, people are going to ask questions. Of course, the police need to communicate in a better fashion.
But also, I think there's a funny thing here in terms of the way that we understand words colloquially and what the words literally mean.
Yeah.
So we have seen absolutely no evidence to suggest that just means they haven't seen evidence at that point in the investigation.
But it sounds to the layperson that they're ruling it out.
Right, and
you shouldn't have to read between the lines, should you?
No, I mean, this is the difficulty. Following their words literally, absolutely correct. Following the interpretation of their words, well, that led people up the garden path.
Well, now we know that it's being led by the counter-terrorism police, this murder investigation. We're going to be in Devon with Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, who will bring us very much up to date. So do stick with us, gbnews.com/your say, if you want to get in touch. But let's get to the news headlines with Lewis Mackenzie.
Tom, Emily, thank you very much. Good afternoon. 4 minutes past 2. Here are your latest GB News headlines. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the death of former MP Anne Widdecombe. A 28-year-old man is in custody. He's now been re-arrested on suspicion of commission, preparation or instigation of acts of terrorism. This comes as the suspect is believed to have driven almost 300 miles to her home in Devon on the day of her death. Devon and Cornwall police confirmed they are not currently looking for any other suspects. Miss Widdecombe was found dead at her home in Devon on Thursday. Police believe she was killed nearly 24 hours earlier, around midday. The government has announced that it's using new powers to prescribe Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. In a written letter, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood told Parliament the UK has identified activity linked to the IRGC involving threats to life and intimidation on UK soil. It means it will be a criminal offence to invite support for or express an opinion or belief that is in support of them, assist them in carrying out UK-related activities or engage in conduct likely to materially assist in, and accept or retain a material benefit provided by or on behalf of them. Also today, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood will set out the legal steps she will take to deport the freed ringleader of Rochdale grooming gangs. Shabir Ahmed was jailed for 22 years in 2012 for multiple counts of child sexual offences, including rape. He was released from prison on licence earlier this month. Calls have mounted across the political spectrum for the deportation of Ahmed, who was stripped of his British citizenship following his conviction, leaving him with only Pakistani nationality. Argentina's foreign minister has called Falkland Islanders an artificially implanted population. He also said the 2013 referendum held on the islands, in which locals chose to remain British, was illegitimate and called for negotiations over the future of the Falklands. He added the 1982 war and the 2013 vote had failed to resolve the Falklands dispute, saying their sovereignty should not be decided by a population artificially implanted by an occupying power. Well, the row was reinvigorated by the Argentine football team, who were filmed singing, if they win the World Cup, it would be for Las Malvinas. England play Argentina on Wednesday night for a place in the final. And finally, Jurassic Park star Sam Neill has sadly died at the age of 78. The Northern Ireland-born New Zealand actor was best known for his leading role in the dinosaur blockbuster films The Piano and Peaky Blinders. He appeared in more than 50 films in his distinguished career. No cause of death has been given, but Neill recently revealed he was cancer-free after being diagnosed with blood cancer in 2022. Well, those are your latest headlines for now. I'm Lewis McKenzie. Let's get some finances.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.34 and 1.17 euros. The price of gold is at £3,032 per ounce, and then the FTSE 100's at 10,474 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Well, 2:07 is the time. Welcome back to Good Afternoon Britain. Now a reminder of the breaking news this afternoon. Counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe. That's after new information and evidence came to light.
Well, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, said that the police are pursuing multiple lines of inquiry to establish the motivation for this attack, and that she plans to update the House of Commons later this afternoon. We will, of course, bring you that statement as and when it happens in the House of Commons.
Absolutely. Well, GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White joins us now. Mark, are we expecting to learn more when Shabana Mahmood stands up in the House of Commons?
I don't think so, to be honest, because you've got a live investigation where she will be at pains not to tread on any of the sensitive information that these counter-terrorism detectives are dealing with. So it'll just be a reiteration of the fact that there are multiple lines of inquiry, and clearly that evidence that has come to light is new, which has necessitated counter-terrorism policing taking over this investigation. And we can't overstate just how significant this is. It was, and I hesitate to use the phrase, a straightforward murder investigation. There's nothing ever straightforward in murder investigations, but we were led to believe in the statements from the police that they hadn't found anything to suggest a terrorism link or indeed a political link. The two sort of meshed together, to be honest, and that the line of inquiry was taking them in another direction, because that's what they said right from the get-go on Friday, when, of course, we learned in the morning about Anne Widdecombe's tragic death, and then, of course, later in the day, the breaking news that we knew that it was now being treated as murder and was a formal murder investigation launched by Devon and Cornwall Police. Even in that first statement, they said very early on nothing to point to an act of terror point to political motivation here. And of course that's raised some eyebrows, because there are those that believe that this becomes a stock phrase that the police will churn out, that's almost meant to sort of manage speculation, to try and dampen down any unrest that there might be because of the realisation, as horrible as it is, that it is actually going in that direction. Because what you don't get, for instance, you don't get in a statement, there's nothing to suggest at this stage it was a break-in gone wrong. So why do they feel they need to bring the others in? Well, because it's a management process to try to calm people down. But it can backfire in itself when further down the road evidence comes to light, and then the same people that you were trying just to calm down then believe that you were maybe covering up something, when actually, in the truth of it, they wouldn't have been covering up anything. It will have been new information that came to light. But you just wonder why they have to rush in with these statements in the first place. Just say, as they always used to say in the past, look, we're not ruling anything in or out at this stage. That's what they used to say.
And this is, Mark, I think something that a lot of people have been slightly confused by, because the way that you just described it, we're not ruling anything in or out, is what the police could have said. They used a slightly different form of words over the previous 4 days. We have no evidence to suggest that this is politically motivated. Now, those two statements mean exactly the same thing, but they imply something very different indeed.
Yes, absolutely. By the way in which you are giving prominence to the fact that you've found nothing that leads you down one path, then of course you're inviting the audience who are receiving that statement to go off in another direction, and not to think that it could be what many people feared, a politically motivated terrorist attack, as indeed Nigel Farage had alluded to at the weekend there, and was roundly shot down by many commentators who believed that he was getting ahead of himself, out of line, and was stoking up fear and concern. But I think what Nigel Farage and members of the Reform Party will say, and have said, is that they're very, very concerned about the discourse of late, the potential threat that politicians from their party in particular are under. They absolutely want to get to the truth of it. And they believe that they were being gaslit by the police. We'll see, obviously, within the fullness of time, more of the information will come out as to what it was that came to light, when it came to light. But clearly, by the way that Shabana Mahmood has spoken, and indeed Lawrence Taylor, the Assistant Commissioner at Scotland Yard, who is in charge of counter-terrorism policing, has said, it seems to be new information. And that could really be explained by the fact that these are complex investigations, where sometimes you're, trying to access and interrogate data on computers or phones. You're looking into social media. You are speaking to associates or contacts of an individual, and sometimes then things can come to light a few days into an investigation. That's clearly what's happened here, and as I say, a very significant turn of events, because now, in the eyes of counter-terrorism police, this was a terrorist related murder, which is now being investigated as such by those experts at counter-terrorism policing South East.
Much indeed. Mark White there, reporting from Devon. Tom, I think it's totally understandable that Reform politicians would be especially concerned about the potential motivation of this attack, considering that Anne Widdecombe was, for quite a time, a Reform spokesperson, a high-profile one at that.
Well, that's exactly right. It's important to note that I think some of the original reports, not from this channel, but from other news organisations, said former politician, found dead or attacked or whatever. No, not former politician. Currently serving spokeswoman for a political party.
It was all about her history as a Conservative Member of Parliament.
Yeah, which is absolutely important. And in an obituary, one of the shining lights of her glittering political career.
Absolutely.
But when you're talking about an active case, and a murder investigation, suggesting that there's sort of nothing at all to do with the fact that she's a currently serving politician, or was a currently serving politician. Of course, not one that held elective office or was seeking elective office, but was speaking on an almost daily basis on behalf of a party that is leading in opinion polls. I mean, it seems rather relevant, does it not?
Yeah, why would you shut it down? It might be a factor, it might not be a factor that she was a Reform spokesperson for justice, but we await to find out. But in the meantime, let's speak to the former police superintendent and terrorism expert, Martin Gallagher. Martin, thank you very much indeed for your time this afternoon. So we now know counter-terrorism are leading this investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe. Does what we know so far in terms of reports, in terms of this suspect, does it appear to you as though this could be very much a terror-related incident?
Good afternoon, Emily. Well, I'm not surprised that it's gone down this line, because the other potentials were, as you've discussed, that it was a random attack or it was personal to Miss Widdecombe. So the fact that it's now went into this arena is not a surprise. It was always a potential that would be the case. And I got your points that you were discussing before I came on around about the language that had been used in the police briefing. And I think that maybe will be a cause for reflection afterwards. I don't think personally there's been an attempt in any way to deceive here or to gaslight anyone. I think it's maybe a choice of words, and the open-mindedness should have maybe been more emphasised than it was. But I think, as it will come out in the fullness of time, something has come to light that has caused this change in the investigation. I don't think anything was being hidden. I'd be flabbergasted if that was the case.
And it does seem that it will have been something that has been found either on the person or at the property of the suspect who is now behind bars, who is now in custody.
Yeah, or while he's being interviewed, Tom. You know, so we've got all those potentials for where this new evidence has come from. But yes, and that's inevitable in a police inquiry, that they're looking into various lines, and one of them has thrown something up, or some of them have thrown something up that has caused this change. And it's been a quick change, and we have to admit that. It's been very quick, and it's been a fast-moving inquiry.
Absolutely. And in terms of the police mindset on this, in terms of the communication, just to go back to that, when they put out statements that say no evidence to suggest that this was a political attack or a terrorist incident, why do you suppose they worded it in that respect rather than saying we're not ruling out anything? Is there a fear that they might sort of galvanise public sentiment in one way or another, that there could potentially be outbursts of anger from some people in the country? Or what is this all about?
So actually, as an ex-police officer, the word evidence has significant connotations. That's something you're going to present in court. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean the same to the public. I get the points you were making before I came on air, that, well, that seems to rule everything out. Well, no, it doesn't. It suggests there's nothing hard and fast that says that that's where we're at. So they're two different things, and I think it's an interpretation. And personally, I think the police need to reflect on their use of that word, because it means something to them that is very different to the public, probably, in terms of my experience. And I've seen the police use that word and then change it to intelligence in later briefings when it suits them to do so. So they went from we have no intelligence to we have no evidence. Now, that actually means a lot to a police officer, but it won't mean anything to a member of the public.
That is such an important point, because I'm sure to me and many others, the two are sort of synonymous, but there's an evidence threshold, is there, in terms of how significant or admissible some form of evidence might be?
Yes, yeah. So intelligence is very different to evidence. Police officers know that. People that work in the criminal justice sector know that, but the public don't. And so the police should, in my opinion, roll back from this language, which probably appeared about the last 10 years, that we've started to use internal language in external briefing. And I'm sorry to say, you got a lot of police officers, I'm not talking about this case in particular, but you got a lot of police officers who present from a script and sound like a robot. And we need to pull back from that as well and start speaking to the public like normal human beings.
That's a very interesting insight. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Martin Gallagher, former police superintendent and terrorism expert.
Well, let's speak now to the former Conservative Home Office Minister, Kevin Foster. Because, Kevin, a lot of people will be frankly concerned, if indeed, as now seems likely, this was a politically motivated attack. That's 3 political assassinations in the last decade in this country.
Absolutely, Tom. And, you know, I live in Devon. I'm a former Home Office minister myself who comments in the national media. Inevitably, you know, it brings concerns for people looking at our system, remembering that the last 2 assassinations we saw of David Amis and of Joe Cox were not of, you know, senior ministers, you know, not people who were holding the Northern Ireland brief or Home Secretary. They were backbench MPs. And you're absolutely right in your comments a few moments ago to say that the fact that Anne Widdecombe hadn't been a member of the House of Commons since 2010 didn't mean she wasn't politically involved. She was still heavily involved in campaigning for the issues she believed in, was very high profile nationally through her media work, and actually did a lot of things here in Devon as well. She was due to be speaking at the Torbay Literary Festival in August, for example. So she was still someone quite high profile in politics, even if she didn't hold elected office. And that brings concerns, you know, for a lot of people who are involved in political campaigning but don't sit on the green benches.
I mean, there's been a lot of concern as well, hasn't there, from some quarters about whether this incident has been used for, in quotes, political propaganda. This is what the former Conservative MP Harvey Proctor, who is also a close friend of Anne Widdecombe, had to say to the Times newspaper, speaking about Nigel Farage, saying that he's deeply disappointed that Nigel Farage has chosen to do that, apparently. Nigel Farage very strongly pushed back on that point. What do you think with this whole conversation about speculation? Is it okay for politicians to ask questions openly about motivations when something like this happens?
I think it's got to be a line drawn that what we can't do is interfere with the investigation. You know, we can't do things or say things that would actually make it harder to get what we all want to see, which is the person who committed this appalling crime convicted and sent to prison for it. You know, that's got to be our absolute goal. You know, I knew Anne. I've met Anne many times. She spoke at a fundraiser of mine some years ago. So, you know, we all want, at the end of the day, to see the person commit a despicable murder of a 78-year-old in their own home, convicted and sent to prison. Now, it's not unusual for politicians who ask questions about investigations and others. And ultimately, let's remember, you know, Nigel's lost a friend here as well. You know, this isn't just something he's commenting on sort of dispassionately. You know, he has lost someone he would have been quite friendly with and known very, very well. So, you know, I think I'd say to anyone on this, you know, we can rightly ask, you know, questions, we can rightly probe, but we just need to make sure we don't go over the line that potentially allows someone in a court to try and argue that a technicality that could see them either get off the offence or not allow the admission of critical evidence. You just had a brilliant explanation there from a former police officer, the difference between intelligence and evidence. And the big thing is make sure there's enough evidence that when the person who did this gets into court, the only inevitable outcome of their trial is a guilty verdict.
And that is such an important point. I know some people have been asking, hang on, why haven't we got a photograph of this guy? I heard an explanation this morning that one of the reasons is if they need to make sure it's the right person, do a lineup or something, and there are multiple different suspects, if in the future that is necessary, having someone's face plastered across the media would prejudice that particular part of the investigation. So there's a lot that has to be behind closed doors at this stage, which is irritating to those of us who knew Anne, and I think everyone at GB News feels like she was really part of the family here.
Absolutely.
But Kevin Foster, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through this twist and turn in a continuing case.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. We'll be bringing you continued coverage of the breaking news that counter-terrorism police are now leading the investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe.
All of that and much more to come here with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold.
They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 27 minutes past 2. Now, as we've been hearing, counter-terrorism police are leading the investigation into the death of Anne Widdecombe, a significant change in their investigation.
Absolutely. Well, GB News Home and Security editor Mark White is in Devon for us, and he joins us now. Mark, what do we know? How are the counter-terrorism police taking this forward, then?
Well, multiple lines of inquiry is what they tell us. It's being coordinated by Counter-Terrorism South East, but the overarching control, of course, is the head of counter-terrorism policing, Lawrence Taylor, at Scotland Yard, who said that it was this new evidence, of course not giving us more detail than that, that has spurred them to take over from Devon and Cornwall Police. And as you can imagine, this has really been like a kick to the guts for so many people in this small community in Devon who really took Anne Widdecombe to their heart. She was a beloved member of this community. And we can actually speak for a reaction to the latest developments with Reform UK board member Gwen Tyler, who lives not that far, from here. You come to see, obviously, the memorial.
Just pay my respects.
To Anne and pay your respects, as you say, but absolutely just enormous news of the way in which this investigation is now heading.
It seems to me that the investigation seems to throw up something new every day, and it keeps it sort of painful and it keeps it raw. I don't understand why the police at the beginning, they arrested somebody, they released him, they arrested somebody else and just said all avenues of investigation are open. We are ruling nothing out. That would have been a reasonable thing to say and would have all accepted that.
I mean, it does seem, when you look at the statements from the police, right at the get-go, from the very first statement they put out on Friday afternoon, it was no evidence of a link to terrorism, almost as though it's an effort to kind of shut down that kind of speculation. But I guess now, 5 days down the line, it just is going to have people, you know, rather angry and confused.
It seems as if time after time now, we see an attempt to massage public mood rather than deal with the facts. And we had it over the Southport killings, we had it over Henry Nowak, we had it about the horror in Northern Ireland, and now we have it with this. And they don't have to lie. They just have to say we are keeping all options open, and people would accept that because this is a horrific situation. But by ruling things out or appearing to rule things out and then a few days later having to admit that actually we can't rule those things out, it makes them look manipulative. We have so little trust in the police these days that this is the sort of thing that just inflames that lack of trust, and it's such a shame. We want them to do a good job. We want them to catch and provide the evidence. We want and deserves the best possible policing. But they seem to be more focused on massaging public opinion than doing their job, which is such a shame.
Listen, I'm sure It's the, excuse me, hay fever. The last thing on Nigel Farage's mind here, but, you know, it seems to an extent that he's been vindicated for some of the comments that he made, that he was shut down with people saying that he was overreaching, overstepping the mark and, you know, being incendiary.
I think it's slightly different in this instance than it would be in other cases. This is a close personal friend. One speaks differently about a close personal friend who has been, it looks, murdered in a brutal fashion than one does some person in the public agenda in the news. And that pain and that distress will make you ask questions. And when we discovered, nothing was said beforehand, but when we discovered it was somebody who'd driven over 200 miles each way from Rotherham, to suggest that it is wrong to suggest that this might have been premeditated, which is all he did, I think is slightly ridiculous. The crowd of people who, with no doubt, #BeKind in their Twitter bios, suggesting that he shouldn't even ask that question. Now, of course, that's a reasonable question to ask, given what we've been told.
Yeah, in the light of latest developments.
In the light, but also in the light of what the police were saying prior to that. Because now it seems what the prior to that was not the case. And if they'd merely said all avenues of investigation are open, then that would have been a perfectly reasonable thing to do. And they used to do that all the time. Why they had to try and close down options, I just don't understand.
OK, Gwen Teller, thanks very much. I know that you come here for the solemn duty of going to see Anne's memorial. But listen, thank you for sparing the time to speak to us. Gwen Teller there from the Reform UK board, and, you know, just speaking about his friend, Anne Widdecombe, the heart that, of course, many friends of Anne Widdecombe feel, but also just how kicked, as I say, in the guts, he, just like people here, feel this punch to the guts from this latest development. It really is, as far as they're concerned, the worst case scenario. What many people had dreaded might be the case. The line of inquiry is now being pursued by counter-terrorism detectives.
Thank you, Mark. And yeah, thoughts to Gwen Teller and others who, of course, loved Anne Widdecombe. Interesting point he made, Tom, about trust in the police, because I do genuinely believe that most people in this country want to trust the police, want to get behind the police. But there have been occasions where the communication has appeared so totally wrong, where police have made very poor decisions that have come to light. I'm thinking of Henry Novak most recently. And that trust has whittled away, and people feel as though sometimes the police, I'm not saying necessarily in this case, but sometimes the police want to hide things from the public because they fear some kind of backlash, or they fear that it might erupt some kind of discord. Is that their job?
I think
to
that there's
withhold
a
information
difficulty.
for that reason?
This country, more than just about any other, I think, has struggled with transition to the social media age, because we have all of these. We are probably more restrictive than any comparable first world country with regard to court reporting and the serious sanctions that we place upon anyone who is to breach restrictions that are placed on the legal process. It's a lot more of a liberal regime in the United States. The onus in a United States case is on the court to protect the jury from the wider conversation. Whereas in Britain, it's to not have the wider conversation happen at all, and make sure no one be sort of talking or knowledgeable about any of these sort of aspects that are spoken about in court. I think maybe we might have to shift to a more American model as time goes on.
Isn't it? And people do get things wrong.
In America, it's not uncommon to sequester a jury to make sure that they are not seeing any media, but they can't shut down the media because of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. And I think that that is a model that has adapted to an age where people use social media and talk to one another in public forums. That has adapted much better than our model that was built for a time when there were 3 television channels and a bit of radio, and that was it when it comes to mass media.
Yeah, and there's all these different rules, social media, press, broadcast, it's all different, isn't it, which complicates matters further. But we're bringing you some breaking news now. 12 people have been arrested as part of an investigation into an extreme right-wing terror threat against an Islamic event in Suffolk last weekend, the counter-terrorism policing London has said.
Well, our national reporter Charlie Peters has the story. Charlie.
This was the UK Ijtima event, Ijtima being the Arabic word for gathering. This was an event that was taking place in Suffolk over the weekend at the Shrubland Hall, which is in Barham, near Ipswich. Now, this large Islamic gathering closed early, reportedly after information was received about a possible threat towards the event. People speaking online who live nearby have shared that there was a very significant police presence around the Shrubland Hall yesterday when this police operation took place. We're being told by counter-terrorism policing in London that their investigation at this stage has led to a total of 12 arrests. They've also said that due to concerns over the possible threat and as a precaution, advice was provided to the organisers of this gathering via Suffolk Police to close the event slightly earlier than planned on Sunday, the 12th of July. They've also said that there is not believed to be any wider threat to the public connected to this matter. They've given a list of the 12 people arrested as part of this investigation. It includes one man as young as 27 arrested in Surrey, and then also an 82-year-old man also arrested in Surrey. That's the age range. They are all men apart from one woman who was arrested in East London. She's 48 years old. The police have said that 8 men were arrested and detained under the Terrorism Act. They remain in police custody at this time. But 3 other men and a woman were arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to murder, that woman being arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. Of these people, one of them, that is the 82-year-old man from Surrey, has since been released on bail. The other 3 remain in police custody at this time, and the investigation continues.
Charlie Peters, thank you very much indeed.
Oh, goodness, well, do bring us any updates, Charlie, on that one. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Yes, Argentina rages at what they call the illegitimate occupation of the Falkland Islands and claim that the native islanders are actually artificial implants.
Goes well for our semi-final on Wednesday.
Well, certainly. We'll have that. And, of course, we're expecting a statement from the Home Secretary on the investigation into the murder of Anne Widdecombe. All to come after this.
Hello, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A sunny day for most today, quite windy across parts of the south, a cooler feel again across northern and eastern parts. The heat persists across the southwest. We've got a high pressure dominating to the north, low pressure to the south, and as they're squeezing together, that's generating a fairly brisk wind along the south coast in particular. It also has been pushing cloud in through the night, so a bit of a grey start over parts of the Midlands, East Anglia, and some of these eastern coasts may stay a little grey throughout the day. For most, though, it is sunny. It's not as hot as it was through the weekend. The peak of the temperatures from South Wales into southwest England, well, we should still get over 30 Celsius, but it is cooler along these North Sea coasts and generally across the northeast. There is the chance of a thundery shower coming up over the Channel Isles, possibly 1 or 2 getting into the southwest of England, but I think the vast majority will stay dry. We'll keep a bit of mist and low cloud at times along some of these coasts in the northeast, but for most it is a dry and sunny evening. The wind's light across Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. A pretty pleasant summer's evening to be had here. As we go through the night, there is a continued possibility of a flash of lightning, a rumble of thunder in the far southwest of England and over the Channel Isles. The cloud will seep back in overnight into eastern Scotland, the Midlands and eastern England as well. So again, another fairly drab start to Tuesday morning. The wind's easing a little along the south coast. Temperatures holding up in the south in particular, a bit more comfortable further north, 11 to 13 here. On to Tuesday, similar story, likely to start fairly dull, perhaps even as far as Wales. This mist and low cloud should clear away but may cling to some coasts. A continued small chance of a shower in the southwest at first, but most places, again, just sunny and a little hotter again tomorrow across the south.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 16 and 15 in Uxbridge is closed. The A428 is closed after the A1. The M40 between junctions 12 and 11 in Buckinghamshire is congested. In Scotland, the A977 is closed in both directions between the Kilbeggy roundabout and Ferrygate due to planned roadworks. Across Wales, the A5 is closed in both directions at Menai Bridge following a bridge closure. And on the trains, Gatwick Express and Southern services are experiencing major disruption on various routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Right, well, we are waiting. It's 2:41. This is Good Afternoon Britain. We are waiting to hear from the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. She's going to be giving an update to the House of Commons on the horrific murder of Anne Widdecombe. And we now know that the counter-terrorism police are leading the investigation, which is a huge update because, of course, the police did say they had no evidence that this was a political motivated attack nor an act of terrorism. But things have changed somewhat in the last few hours.
The Home Secretary, in the last 2 hours, issued a statement saying that new information and evidence has been uncovered by the terrorism police. They are leading the investigation into the horrific murder of Anne Widdecombe now. That's the Home Secretary's statement this afternoon. Let's speak to Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, who joins us now down in Devon. Mark, it's hard to overstate how much of a step change this is in the investigation.
No, absolutely right. It is a very significant turn of events, given especially where we were led to believe the investigation was going, which was away from any suggestion of terrorism or a political motivation, and now to be told that they do believe that this was a terrorist attack, a death, a murder instigated by an act of terrorism is very significant indeed, and that's why now the Home Secretary is going to address the House of Commons about this. We believe at about 4:45 this afternoon. There are a number of other questions in the House, so it's quite packed in terms of urgent questions in the House this afternoon. So Shabana Mahmood will be speaking, of course, on that and the wider issues, of course, around the security of MPs and other prominent politicians, because despite what Devon and Cornwall police had said initially at the start of this inquiry that, you know, Anne Widdecombe was a retired politician, well, that simply wasn't true. You know, she was very active still in politics, you know, a senior spokesperson for reform on justice matters, had, of course, stepped down previously as an MEP and an MEP, but still very actively involved in politics. So there is concern about where this leaves the safety of MPs because, you know, if it, in the fullness of time, turns out to be an act of terrorism, not the first time that an MP has been murdered as an act of terrorism. We remember the horrific murder of David Amos in a constituency meeting that he held in Essex at the time that he was murdered by an Islamist terrorist at that time. So there is concern. Reform in particular have voiced concern about the threat that their MPs are under. We know it's a big issue for Nigel Farage, who's spoken about the level of security that he needs on a daily basis, but that is now, we understand, being extended to other Reform members because of the concerns that the party has.
OK, well, Mark White, thank you very much indeed for that update. Our Home and Security Editor there in Devon for us.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Do stay with us. We will, of course, bring you that statement from the Home Secretary as and when it takes place. Lots more still to come on today's programme.
Yes, also, there's been a huge blaze in North Wales and it's been declared a major incident. That's as the heatwave sparks high-risk zones across Britain.
Well, if you're in search of some holiday sunshine, perhaps not in one of those high-risk zones, here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. The heatwave continues across much of Europe. Central and southern parts of France in particular could see temperatures in the low to mid-40s. Along with the high temperatures, lots of dry, sunny weather to continue across many areas, though the humidity could be enough to spark off some thunderstorms across northern parts of Italy, Austria, Slovenia, potentially parts of Croatia as well. The sunshine continues this week alongside the hot temperatures, widely in the high 30s to low 40s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Well, we're joined now by another two brutal commentators, Jonathan Liss and Emma Trimble, here in the studio to go through the day's news. Good morning, both of you. Let's start with this pub opening all through the night on Monday. I mean, great news for pub landlords. We've just spoken to one, but not necessarily such great news for the police, Emma, who aren't so impressed with this idea.
True, although in the 11th hour, it seems that Keir Starmer's finally figured out how to do something popular. I mean, if he could allow them to open until 5 a.m. around, not just for the football, but throughout the year, I think that would be, as in many European countries, it'd be really good for hospitality. Sure, it will lead to maybe some drunken disorderly behaviour.
Depends if we win or lose.
Come on, the police don't actually bother to police proper crimes anyway, it seems, so I'm sure.
Well, the GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It was the daring rescue mission that shocked the world. 50 years ago, 102 hostages were rescued in a deadly siege following a week-long crisis that began with the hijacking of Air France Flight 139. 248 people boarded the flight from Tel Aviv to Paris, with a stopover in Athens to pick up more passengers. Among those passengers were 4 armed pro-Palestinian terrorists. 8 minutes after takeoff, the terrorists hijacked the plane and forced the pilot to fly to Uganda's Entebbe airport. There, the notorious dictator Idi Amin and his troops were waiting to assist the attackers to hold the passengers hostage.
I've been telephoned several telephone calls from Tel Aviv talking to me since I cut off relationship with Israel.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
How are you? Great to see you. Listen, how are the bags?
Great to see you.
How are the bags under the eyes? It's been a long night for you as well as us, right?
Yeah, they're always there anyway, the bags.
Oh, go on.
No, it was a fantastic evening, wasn't it? I knew after about 5 or 10 minutes that we were so focused on the match. I haven't seen us like that for a little while. We were really prepared properly, and we just took the sting out the Mexican side. We played some great football, and of course, Jude Bellingham got his goals as normal, and Harry got his penalty as normal, and it was just not only a great game and a great result, it's just lit the nation up, really, I think, now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 3. Now, firefighters are still at the scene of a huge wildfire in Conwy Mountain in North Wales.
Yes, a major incident has been declared by emergency services who are dealing with the blaze.
It comes after Natural England warned of a huge swathe of Britain is at risk of exceptional wildfires this week as temperatures continue to well exceed 30 degrees Celsius.
Well, we're now joined by the Mayor of Conwy, Councillor Sian Grady. Councillor, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this. I mean, just how devastating have these wildfires been to the area?
Oh, it's absolutely awful. It's utter devastation up in the mountains. It's a beautiful landscaped area, and it is absolutely destroyed. It's part of the Cyneddig mountain range, and it's absolutely destroyed the area. I feel so sorry for the people who've had to be evacuated, and their homes last night were very at risk, and it's obviously an ongoing situation.
Now, I understand this is a very rural area, but as you say, people are affected. There are there is, of course, a local population. Just how many people have had to move?
Approximately 38 have moved out of the houses. Many of them have gone to family and friends, but some have been put up by the local authority.
And is this something the area has experienced before, or is this the first of its kind?
There has been fires in this particular area before, to my knowledge, but I don't think it's ever been to this scale. And it doesn't help that the winds are picking up, and I think it's being monitored by the amazing fire emergency services and the fire rescue crews up there. And they've also, making use of the smaller appliances, because in Conway Town itself, we have very narrow streets, and we're lucky to have kept our fire station open. And the narrow appliances will help in that area because it is very hard terrain to get to.
Now we're looking at on our screens just the scale of this fire, the smoke, the ash, I'm sure the soot as well, on the most beautiful landscape. What is it that is actually catching light here? Presumably dried out vegetation and the like.
Yes, it is. The area is, because it is obviously mountainous region, so it's all the heathers and all the terrain that's up there. It's just a highly landscaped area and it's full of all sorts of gorse and anything that will catch fire is burnt up there. We're lucky because the mountains are all around us and there's an awful lot of trees. Luckily, in this particular area, it hasn't got to any the trees in the area as such.
Is there any investigation as to how this wildfire started? We know that in the past it could be something like a barbecue being used, or lit cigarettes, or in some awful circumstances deliberately. Do we know anything to that?
Not to my knowledge at all. I think it's far too early to say because it's an ongoing situation. The firemen are far too outstretched because there's fires in other areas of North Wales, so they are just so busy doing what they need to do. An investigation will follow, I'm sure, eventually.
OK, well, Councillor Sian Grady, thanks indeed for joining us, Mayor of Conway, and let's hope that everyone stays safe out there and that this can be brought under control as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's awful seeing the destruction of beautiful landscapes like that. Yeah.
Just so much natural beauty in that part of the world.
Yeah, in this country. It's a very beautiful country.
Yeah. Well, thank you indeed for watching Good Afternoon Britain this afternoon. Now, you will want to stay with us for the next few hours. We're expecting a whole host of statements in the House of Commons, not least to do with the murder of Anne Widdecombe. Martin Daubney's up next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Yes, it is time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A fine, warm summer's evening for most. Still quite breezy across the south and the east, where it is also still quite chilly on the east coast. Under high pressure, the wind's coming in from the sea. There's also low pressure to the south and a bit more cloud spreading in across the Channel Isles. May just provide one or two showers. A small chance of a flash of lightning or a rumble of thunder. But if you're after any rain, well, I don't think we're going to see much of that. Most places staying dry and staying clear. The cloud will seep back in across these eastern areas as we go through the night. But further west it stays clear. A reasonably comfortable night, certainly across northern Britain. Temperatures in rural spots down into single figures, so not as hot as many nights have been so far through this summer, but still pretty warm across the south. Another very warm sunny day to come for most tomorrow. Cracking day in western Scotland. The east coast will be plagued by that har, certainly initially. Lots of sunshine to come for Northern Ireland on Tuesday, northwest England, but northeast England down across the Midlands, even into East Wales. Some of this cloud may well have spread in by first thing tomorrow morning, making for a bit of a grey start here. Might even be a little bit of light rain and drizzle, but that should fizzle quickly. The cloud will tend to gradually melt away. Some of the coasts may stay a little misty, and certainly on that east coast it will be rather fresh with this breeze, but generally the wind's lighter than today, certainly across the south, and lots of sunshine to come. A little hotter again on Tuesday, particularly over the Midlands, the southeast, 31, 32. It will be cooler on those North Sea sea coasts more likely to be in the high teens. Not a great deal of change through Tuesday evening. Keeping our eyes down across France, where there's always the possibility of thunderstorms drifting up. That'll be a continued chance through the rest of this week, but if you're after rain, no real sign of it. Lots more sunshine to come over the next few days.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question.
Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way. You will not want to miss it, trust me.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m, only on